Introduction to Dr. Gu. 24 years is usually the time it takes for a person to complete their PhD from elementary school. Therefore, during the 24th year of stock trading, the author suddenly wanted to write a book, telling both stories and the stock market. Chapter 1. Before the college entrance examination. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In June of the millennium, the scorching summer sun in B City swept through the campus of number 21 Middle School and the teaching building on its east side. That is a building exclusively owned by the third year of high school. As a newly established provincial key high school in B City, the school leaders attach great importance to this year's college entrance examination and allocate the best resources of the whole school to the third year of high school. There are 10 classes in the third grade of high school, with hundreds of students. At this moment, they are studying nervously. For most students, the college entrance examination 1 month later will be the most important exam in their lives. So even if the classroom is a bit stuffy, even if sweat drips across the cheeks, we must race against time to prepare for the exam. The atmosphere in the teaching center at the end of the corridor on the first floor of the entire building is solemn. The homeroom teacher of Class 1 in senior high school was a bit nervous. He stood at his desk and watched as 3 school leaders were criticizing a student in his class. The teaching director was very excited and loudly questioned the young man at his desk, "Countryside, are you not good at reviewing questions, or are you too confident in your writing skills? What did you write about a clear essay with a clear theme?" The grade group leader and vice principal standing aside looked at each other with confusion on their faces. Before arriving at the teaching office, the two heard that a top student who had consistently ranked among the top in the province in the mock college entrance examination had failed the last time. The teaching director took out several test papers and placed the last one of the Chinese language test papers on his desk. He then tapped it with his fingers and said, "I've run away from the topic to the Pacific side." The essay topic also came up with the phrase, "between 2 points, the shortest bull market." What is the simulation exam for the college entrance examination in the countryside? Are you soliciting articles from financial magazines? The countryside in front of me, with short black hair, a slender figure, and standing straight. Faced with the aggressive teaching director, he was very quiet and appeared calm. Seeing that the countryside remained silent, without even a single expression, the teaching director became even angrier and continued to question, "There's also math paper. You actually drew a stock candlestick chart on the functional coordinate system. Why, are you afraid that others won't know you like stocks?" Seeing that the teaching director was very emotional, the vice principal gently patted him from behind, reminding him not to get too excited. The vice principal has rich teaching experience and is well aware that students will not make such actions without reason, especially when facing a teenager in adolescence. The attitude of criticism should not be too harsh. More importantly, the student in front of me is a top student with the ability to achieve the best results in the history of the college entrance examination in our school. If we cannot communicate well, it may lead to a situation of double loss. The teaching director naturally understood the vice principal's intention. He adjusted his breathing, suppressed his anger, slowed down his tone, and asked, "Countryside, why are you doing this?" The corner of the countryside's mouth slightly raised, and a leisurely sentence came out. "Always being first in the exam, have you ever thought about the feeling of being second? You." This answer made the teaching director very angry, and he opened his mouth and didn't know what to say. Others were also enraged, except for the rural homeroom teacher who breathed a slight sigh of relief. With her understanding of the countryside, intentionally pouring water also resembled his style of behavior. The atmosphere was awkward, and everyone fell silent for a moment. The grade group leader thought for a moment and asked with a gentle attitude, "As far as I know, you are always the first in the grade, but the second in the grade is always a different person. How can you be sure who you will give this first to?" Tianyuan smiled and said, "Then let's take it as a warning to my classmates. Anyone can fail the exam." Although the words are reasonable, it is still difficult to convince everyone that since even the school leaders have not asked an answer, it is estimated that if we continue to ask like this, the result will be the same, and we can only think of other ways. The vice principal patted Tianyuan's shoulder and said, "Since you have a clear idea, we'll trust you. You go back to the classroom." Stepping out of the teaching office, the voice of the teaching director and others arguing immediately came from behind. Upon hearing this, Tianyuan gave a soft sneer. The task of investigating the truth behind the incident fell on the homeroom teacher of Class 1 in the third year of high school. She is aware of Tianyuan's interest in studying stocks, but this interest has never affected his grades, let alone any incidents of improvisation on exam papers. As the college entrance examination approaches, students often need to be vigilant when they suddenly make strange actions. What exactly happened in the countryside? We must uncover the truth. The homeroom teacher's first stop was at the school's psychological counseling room, which is a newly established institution to protect high school seniors. However, due to the fact that the student himself was not present and the information provided by the homeroom teacher was too limited, the psychologist could only make a guess. The parents of Tianyuan were both scientific researchers who worked outside all year round. His intentional failure in the exam this time may be a willful, seeking attention. The homeroom teacher was skeptical about this conclusion, so the second stop was to find Jin Zhigao, a classmate from the countryside. Of course, Jin Zhigao knew that his friend's recent exam results had significantly declined, and it was not surprising to see his homeroom teacher during lunch break in the classroom. Faced with the question, "What's wrong with your friend lately?" Jin Zhigao pondered for a long time before stuttering back, "Tianyuan's grades have been stable since the third grade of junior high school. This exam should have been too tiring, right?" "Tired? Are you tired and still thinking about playing on a roll of paper?" The homeroom teacher was enraged by Jin Zhigao's answer. Recalling that this kid has always regarded the countryside as his idol, and he always listens to him obediently. Now, answering questions that are not right may be exactly what he instructed. Jin Zhigao suddenly muttered in a low voice, "No one is perfect. I think it's normal to occasionally fail an exam." Seeing Jin Zhigao's expression full of doubts, the homeroom teacher found it difficult to judge. Doesn't he know why Tianyuan failed the exam? The homeroom teacher quickly told Jin Zhigao about the strange behavior in the countryside. He indeed muttered in surprise, "This kid, is he crazy?" "So, as his best friend, why do you think he would do this?" the homeroom teacher asked. "I know that Tianyuan has been reading books on the Asian financial crisis recently, especially the chapter on defending the Hang Seng Index. He told me that he will apply to universities with outstanding financial majors in the college entrance examination and will also work in stock investment after graduation." The homeroom teacher nodded and said, "It is well known that Tianyuan enjoys studying stocks. It is also expected that he will apply to a finance major university, but what we are discussing is what happened to him in this exam. Could it be that he wanted to match a suitable college by lowering his score?" Jin Zhigao suggested his guess before speaking, feeling embarrassed and smiling awkwardly. The homeroom teacher also smiled and said, "A higher grade is necessary to randomly choose a major or school. Is it necessary to lower the grade?" Suddenly, Jin Zhigao's gaze turned towards the corridor, as if he had realized something. He opened his mouth, lost in thought, and then withdrew his words. The homeroom teacher keenly noticed this detail and made her more certain that Jin Zhigao must know something, so she continued to ask, "This is something related to your friend's personal future. Tell me what you know. Don't worry, I will keep it confidential." Jin Zhigao's gaze once again turned to the corridor. After much contemplation, he hesitated for a long time and struggled to squeeze out a sentence. "If our school performs well in the college entrance examination this year, will the teaching director be promoted?" The homeroom teacher only then noticed the teaching director in the hallway, and then recalled some of the past memories of the countryside at school. This student is friendly and always polite to others, but when he meets the teaching director, his attitude is cold and even hostile. Counting one by one, the astonishing actions that Tianyuan occasionally made during high school will involve the teaching director. For example, after each big exam, the school will award students with excellent grades. Every time Tianyuan takes the stage, he takes the prize with both hands and bows in gratitude. Only when the teaching director gives him the prize, Tianyuan takes it with one hand and does not bow. His smile is also very stiff, to be precise, it is a bitter smile. Once, the teaching director took excellent students to exchange ideas with his brother's school. When sharing learning experiences, he had a perfunctory attitude towards the countryside, only saying some clichés such as, listen attentively in class and review carefully after class. In the end, he also added a sentence, our grades are good, it's all because we teach our leaders well. This made the audience present question mark. The most serious incident was when the countryside took the lead in boycotting the school's activities. As a result, the homeroom teacher was very concerned, criticizing education and seeking help from parents. They almost missed the opportunity to visit the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Looking back now, wasn't that event organized by the teaching director? After Jin Jigao's reminder, the homeroom teacher immediately understood the motivation behind pastoral behavior. In recent years, the teaching director has achieved some results in number 21 middle school. As long as the school creates another historic high score in the college entrance examination this year, he is likely to receive commendation and promotion. The only mystery now is what kind of past there is between the countryside and the teaching director, that a teenager would rather be criticized and educated than cause trouble for the school leaders. We can only continue to inquire about Jin Jigao. Originally, all the actions in the countryside were to help their sister Lu fight for justice. Lu Jie was the homeroom teacher of Tianyuan and Jin Jigao in junior high school, and also the ex-wife of the teaching director. Her youth, gentleness, and approachable teaching style make students like her very much, which is why everyone likes to call her Lu Jie. What surprised the students was that their lovely sister Lu often came to class with a slight bruise, and then used various excuses to evade everyone's inquiries. The countryside secretly investigated upon seeing the situation. He learned that Lu Jie's husband was the teaching director of the high school department at the same school, with strong professional abilities, but he was a man with a hot temper. Tianyuan suspects that Sister Lu's injury was due to domestic violence. In the year of graduating from junior high school, Lu Jie and the teaching director divorced, which made Tianyuan more certain that the teaching director had hurt Lu Jie. After listening to Jin Jigao's description, the homeroom teacher broke out in a cold sweat. As a top student in the junior high school department of number 21 middle school, Tianyuan chose to enter our high school despite having extremely high scores in the middle school entrance examination. Did she come to seek revenge from the teaching director? She realized that she had to rush to the junior high school department of 21st middle school as soon as possible to talk to Lu Jie from the countryside. After hearing about the countryside, Sister Lu was very moved and anxious, and agreed to quickly talk to the countryside. Chapter 2. Top Scorer in the College Entrance Examination. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. It was already 9 p.m. after school in the third grade of high school. There is a habit in the countryside to sit in the small garden of the school for a while before going home. Firstly, it can cool down after a hot day, and secondly, it can relax the tense mood. When he walked into the garden, he was quite surprised to see Sister Lu. Tianyuan immediately realized that it was possible that Jin Jigao had betrayed himself. Let's talk about it. Sister Lu came straight to the point and smiled as she pointed to the stone stool, asking Tianyuan to sit down. Tianyuan, remember when you filled out your application for the middle school entrance exam, you told me that your grandfather was sick and your parents had been working outside for a long time, so you could only help take care of them. Yes. That's why I suggested you apply to the nearest high school in our school. But now, how can I hear a speculation that you're getting into this high school to target my ex-husband and seek revenge on me? The countryside fell silent for a while. Grandpa was really sick that year, and I wasn't just thinking about revenge when I took the entrance exam to this school. Isn't it just about seeking revenge? So you just want to seek revenge, by the way? Tianyuan nodded slowly. Sister Lu paused for a few seconds and said, "Countryside, some things may not be what you imagine, such as emotions. But he hurt you." Sister Lu smiled and sighed, "But he was also very good to me and had paid for me before." Seeing the silence of the countryside, Sister Lu continued, "Emotional things are very complex, but the countryside, let the past pass. I no longer care about things, they are not worth keeping in your heart and sulking. If the countryside is lost in thought, it seems reasonable to let go of the past. I know you are very kind and upright. But in the countryside, if you take a breath out of your own future, wouldn't the cost be too high?" Tianyuan was puzzled and thought to herself, how could Sister Lu ask such a question? She had never done anything that would affect her future. Will schools punish students severely for drawing pictures on exam papers and writing essays that deviate from the topic? On the other hand, Sister Lu is also uncertain whether the rural behavior is a temporary impulse or whether she really wants to hinder the promotion of the teaching director by failing the college entrance examination. In order to find out the truth, she told him all the information collected by the homeroom teacher of Class 1 in the third year of high school. Tianyuan suddenly understood and felt a little guilty. Although there were elements targeting the teaching director in this incident, I never expected to disturb Sister Lu, so I had to explain it quickly and give her a reassuring pill. Don't worry, Sister Lu, I won't do such a thing as killing 1,000 enemies and self-harming 800. Sister Lu nodded. You know, this is the last mock exam before the college entrance examination. In order to improve candidates' confidence, the difficulty of setting questions is relatively low, and there is not much reference value for the college entrance examination results. Personally, I think this exam is too weak, so I had a sudden interest in playing and didn't expect to disturb so many people and make you worry for me. Even though in Lu Jie's impression, Tianyuan has always been an honest student, she still asked anxiously, is it true? So you will do your best to face the college entrance examination, right? Tianyuan nodded decisively and said, of course, I will definitely do my best in the college entrance examination. Okay, you go home early, and I'll go home too, said Sister Lu with peace of mind on the way home. Tianyuan reminisced about the bits and pieces of her junior high school years, with a continued sense of gratitude and a hint of guilt toward Sister Lu in her heart. Why is there a hint of guilt? This has to start from my childhood in the countryside. His parents are both scientific researchers who work in other places all year round and rarely learn about the learning and growth in the countryside. In addition, his grandparents doted on the countryside and didn't pay much attention to his academic performance, which led to the countryside being very playful. And he basically doesn't listen attentively in class, and doesn't review seriously after class. He just does a quick review before each final exam. But even with just a sudden attack, he was able to achieve good grades in elementary school with high intelligence and good memory. After entering adolescence, the distance between the countryside and his parents continued to grow, and after entering junior high school, he even deliberately spent more time playing. Although I may also cram in before the exam, this method is difficult to achieve good grades. When his parents saw that his grades were not good, they immediately harshly criticized him, which made him even less willing to study hard. In this way, the countryside gradually became a student with poor grades. Until the second year of junior high school, there was a new homeroom teacher in the class, which was Sister Lu. She has an easy-going personality, is patient and meticulous, and takes great care of every student, making the countryside feel the warmth of family. From then on, Tianyuan worked hard and told himself to become an excellent student who could make Sister Lu proud. Once a talented person takes it seriously, their performance naturally improves by leaps and bounds. In every subsequent exam, Tianyuan's grades skyrocketed, and before the middle school entrance exam, he was already a complete academic achiever. The goal of Tianyuan is to be admitted to the best high school in the province, in return for Lu Jie's education and care. However, before the middle school entrance examination, my grandfather from the countryside suddenly fell ill, and although he had no worries about his life, he needed someone to take care of him. Tianyuan couldn't bear her grandmother's hard work alone, making it difficult to make a choice when filling out her application for the middle school entrance examination. Lu Jie sensed the hesitation of the countryside and asked him the truth. After learning about the situation, she immediately suggested that he apply to this school. Although the high school department of number 21 middle school was not a provincial key at that time, it was also one of the top municipal key departments, and the school was continuously increasing investment. The most important thing is that it is close to the rural home, and the academic burden is lighter than that of a provincial key high school, which will make it easier for him to take care of his grandfather. So, at the final moment of filling out the application, Tianyuan followed Lu Jie's advice with great guilt. Now, at another important milestone in her life, Lu Jie has once again appeared in front of the countryside, caring about her former students like 3 years ago. This made Tianyuan feel that he must live up to this concern. Returning home, my grandparents had already fallen asleep. The countryside turned on the desk lamp and developed a new sprint preparation plan. He also had a new goal in his heart, determined to become the first top scorer in the college entrance examination among the students taught by Sister Lu. Half a month before the college entrance examination, the weather has become even hotter. Therefore, in the third year of high school, students are allowed to freely prepare for the exam and can either come to school or study at home. Some students, in order to avoid the summer heat, will find places with air conditioning to study, and countryside is one of them, but the place they go to is slightly strange. Securities Company. For several days in a row, Tianyuan was reviewing his homework on the windowsill on the side of the retail trading hall. Due to his childish appearance, which sets him apart from the vast majority of investors, and the fact that he is not holding a stock book but a roll of paper in his hand, he is often eye-catching. Occasionally, staff members come to take a look, although they do not express any opinions, they can still vaguely feel that he is not very welcomed. After thinking about it in the countryside, let's just open a household so that we can confidently enjoy the air conditioning. On the last day of June, Tianyuan arrived at the securities company early with a bonus of 10,000 yuan given to him by the 21st middle school when he was promoted to high school that year, as well as his own ID card. He was preparing to open an account and become a formal investor, but he walked to the counter without seeing the staff. Tianyuan thought to himself that he might have arrived too early, so he had to pace back and forth in front of the counter. After a while, a security guard walked towards him and said, "Young man, I've been watching you studying by the window lately. Why is it that the school is offering stock courses now?" Tianyuan took a glance and saw that the security guard was a middle-aged man, not tall but very sturdy. Unlike most of the staff in the sales department, his smile and friendly and witty language were the differences. Tianyuan smiled and replied, I hope to take a stock course." Hee. "How did you get to the counter?" "I'm here to open an account and I want to invest in stocks." The security guard looked at the countryside. "Are you of age?" "Of course, it's been a year since we reached adulthood." The security guard smiled and fell silent for a few seconds, feeling lost in thought. He said meaningfully, "Child, stocks are a bit difficult." "I know, do you have any suggestions?" It's the first time I've seen someone ask a security guard for advice on stock trading." Tianyuan smiled and said, "I don't know what others think, but I think your position is more conducive to seeing the real situation of the investors." The security guard carefully scrutinized the countryside again and thought to himself that people don't underestimate their youth. However, the child in front of him was only 19 years old, but he didn't have the arrogance of a young person at all. He could even humbly ask a security guard for advice, and it was really rare to find the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com. The stock market is 1 profit, 2 draws, and 7 losses. Only 1 out of 10 investors makes money. Tianyuan nodded and said, "That's quite difficult. But you don't have to worry too much. You are very young, and youth is capital. As long as you are willing to learn, you will become the one who makes money." From another perspective, when one earns 7 losses, one person earns the money that 7 people lose. Tianyuan nodded again. The security guard raised his hand and pointed to the staircase at the end of one side of the retail hall. Tianyuan looked in the direction he pointed and saw a man wearing a white shirt and a red tie, as well as the back of a woman wearing a blue dress. The security guard continued, "That man in a white shirt is a legendary figure in our business department. He is the home of stock trading and wealth creation." Tianyuan was curious and said, "How much did he earn?" In the early 1990s, when the stock market was just established, he claimed that he had entered the market for 5,000 yuan and now his net worth has reached tens of millions. The Mercedes-Benz sedan parked outside is his. Some myopic countryside took out his glasses case from his pocket, wanting to carefully examine the legend in the distance and remember his face so that he could have the opportunity to consult with him in the future. This scene once again made the security guard laugh. At the moment when she put on her glasses, the woman in a blue dress turned around and instantly distracted the attention of the countryside. The girl is quite young, with clear eyebrows and beautiful eyes, and has shoulder-length hair. She should have just talked to a man and seemed quite happy when she turned around. Tianyuan Meng realized that she was looking at the stock market legend behind her, but it was too late. The man had already climbed the stairs and could only look at it later. And the girl was walking towards her at this moment, with a youthful smile on her face. Chapter 3. Release that girl. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A girl of similar age walked towards him with a sweet smile. For the upright and adolescent countryside, it was inevitable that his heart was beating. He instinctively responded with a smile. But soon he realized he was overthinking. The girl wanted to say hello to the security guard next to her. "Uncle, I'm here to apply. May I ask where the administrative office is?" The security man pointed her the way and told her that the staff were having a morning meeting. "Just find Manager Lu later." The girl thanked and left, and the security guard exclaimed to the countryside, "Little girl is as young as you, it's so nice to be young." After saying that, he resigned from the inspection. Yes, being young is great, it has infinite possibilities. At the age of 19, Tianyuan stood at the counter of TH Securities and began to yearn for his upcoming journey in the stock market. The opening time is approaching, and many investors have come to the trading hall, which reminds Tianyuan of a classic stock market saying. When securities companies are crowded, the stock market is likely to have reached its peak. For this argument, Tianyuan has its own perspective. Someone queuing up to enter the market means there will be more incremental funds, which can usually continue to drive up the stock market. Only when the people queuing up to enter the market have already bought the stocks and there are no more people willing to enter, will it be the high point of the stock market. Thinking about it, Tianyuan noticed that there was also a queue behind him. These should all be people who wanted to open an account. At almost 9 o'clock, the staff of the securities company finished the meeting and returned to their work positions one after another. Tianyuan can finally handle the account opening procedures. The teller is an intern who is somewhat unfamiliar with the business and always consults senior colleagues nearby from time to time. The people behind me were very anxious and occasionally complained. It means, "Hurry up, don't delay me from entering the market to make money." While filling out the information, Tianyuan suddenly heard a commotion in the retail hall. He is not a person who enjoys watching the excitement and has no interest in the things in the hall. He just keeps burying himself in filling out the information. It wasn't until the noise over there grew louder and even screams came out that he realized something might have happened. The people lining up behind him ran over to watch the excitement, and he decided to follow along. As a result, he realized that something really had happened, and even his usual calm demeanor felt nervous in this scene. At this moment, in front of the giant stock display screen in the retail hall, there was a middle-aged man with messy hair and sweat-soaked clothes. He was holding a fruit knife and pointing it at the crowd. Countryside doubts, is this hostage-taking? He quickly moved horizontally for 2 steps, hoping to see more clearly through the cracks in the crowd. Suddenly he saw a blue dress. Is it her? The girl I just met in the morning. She was kidnapped by her uncle. A few people standing in front of the crowd were trying to persuade the robber uncle, but he was very cautious and no one dared to get too close to him. Big brother, don't get excited, there's something to say. Manager Lu of the sales department stood at the forefront of the crowd, sweating profusely with anxiety. Even though he was afraid, his responsibility was to try his best to persuade the robbers. The robber suddenly gestured horizontally with a knife, causing the crowd to panic and retreat. Stop talking nonsense, call Shi Yisheng out. Manager Lu furrowed his brows and muttered trembling, Shi Yisheng, I don't know him. Don't pretend, one of the major clients of TH Securities B City General Business Department. Would you, as the lobby manager, know him? Manager Lu certainly knows Shi Yisheng, who is one of the most important customers of the business hall. He knew that the robbers either knew this person or had done their homework in advance. I. The robber anxiously urged, hurry up, call him out. In fact, Manager Lu only spoke to Shi Yisheng on the phone in the morning, and Shi Yisheng should be looking at the market in the large apartment on the 2nd floor. But whether or not to call him out is a dilemma for Manager Lu. If we don't find him, the girl in front of us will be in danger, and if we look for him, we don't know what the emotionally excited robber would do. If you put Shi Yisheng in a dangerous situation, even if everything goes smoothly in the end, you will definitely offend him. To some extent, Manager Lu is enduring the torture of conscience while weighing how to preserve the work. Big brother, I don't know where Shi Yisheng is, and besides, why are you looking for him to catch this little girl? You can pretend. I only saw the little girl talking and laughing with Shi Yisheng in the morning. The robber looked up at the stairs and raised his voice, shouting, he's on the 2nd floor. Manager Lu was startled and stumbled. Upon hearing this, the kidnapped girl finally realized that the person in the robber's uncle's mouth, Shi Yisheng, was the one who had been guiding her by the stairs in the morning. She trembled and explained, Uncle, I don't know him. How could it be? I know Shi Yisheng and never easily talk to strangers, let alone smile at them. The girl became even more scared and continued to explain innocently, I came to apply for a job. I couldn't find the administrative office, so I asked him to help me find a way. The uncle hesitated for a moment, but the girl became even more anxious. She looked at Manager Lu and said, Manager Lu, you need to testify for me. I'm here to apply. Manager Lu hesitated, the robber's words were true. Shi Yisheng is a legendary figure in the stock market that is well known in B City. He usually pays great attention to protecting his privacy and rarely communicates with strangers. As for the smiling face, he has never seen it before. And the girl in front of her should be applying for a job. If Shi Yisheng knew her, he would definitely greet her in advance. Seeing that Manager Lu had been silent for a long time, the robber became impatient and shouted, go find him. Manager Lu was startled. Suddenly, someone behind me reminded me, go find it quickly. If the robber is in a hurry and does something terrible, it will be troublesome. He was right when he thought about it. After all, he must be responsible for what happened. It doesn't matter who offended. It's better to throw this difficult problem to Shi Yisheng and say, okay, I'll go find him. Manager Lu cautiously passed by the robbers and walked towards the stairs. At the same time, sirens sounded outside the window. At the first moment when the girl was kidnapped, someone called the police. Upon hearing the siren, the robber calmed down and seemed mentally prepared. He repeatedly said to the crowd in a low voice, get out, everyone get out. The girl's mood slightly calmed down and she tentatively asked, Uncle, why are you looking for Shi Yisheng? I'm at a dead end, the robber uncle sighed, his tone becoming even more calm. This feeling was like the tranquility before the storm, and he might be contemplating the final action or preparing to negotiate with the police. Police officer C entered the lobby and pulled up a cordon, and began clearing the scene. The robber watched quietly. Suddenly, a voice came out, and the distance was very close. "Uncle, you stand back a bit, there is a sniper outside the window." The robber uncle was startled and quickly turned his head to take a look. The speaker was Tianyuan. Just now, while the robber uncle was communicating with manager Lu, he secretly hid by the pillar in the hall. At this point, he had already learned through the conversation just now that Uncle Security had told him that his stock market legend was called Shi Yisheng. The robber uncle in front of him must know that he is very wealthy, and most likely wants to demand money from him by taking hostages. It's just that the robber uncle misunderstood this girl. She was just asking for directions from Shi Yisheng. If you want to blame her, then blame her bright smile. Suddenly, a person appeared, making the robber uncle alert. He quickly glanced at the countryside and remembered what he had said. He then pulled the girl back into the corner, trying to avoid the sniper's sight. The girl who was kidnapped was so angry that she thought to herself, how could anyone still think for the robber and remind him to avoid the sniper? She looked angrily at the countryside, only to realize that the boy looked a bit familiar. Is it the boy who passed by in the morning? Tianyuan exchanged a glance with the girl, and he could see the underlying lines in her expression. Are you sick? How can you help him? Seeing that the robber uncle had followed his advice, Tianyuan immediately put forward the next suggestion. Uncle, I can tell that your blade is always facing outward and your movements are very light. Are you afraid of hurting the little girl? Perhaps seeing through his thoughts, the uncle looked at the countryside with caution again. Tianyuan slowly raised his hands above his head, but the little girl's body is too weak, and if she accidentally gets injured, she may still be injured. How about I exchange it with her and I'll be your hostage? The words amused the uncle. You're not much stronger than a little girl in terms of physique. That's right, so I'm here as a hostage. Firstly, I can cooperate with you to achieve your goals, and secondly, I won't pose a threat to you. The girl was surprised and somewhat understood what Tianyuan had just done. He was trying to close the distance with his uncle and then waited for an opportunity to save himself. But on second thought, this boy is really thin and weak. Does he have the ability to do it? Moreover, the uncle did not accept the proposal from the countryside and sneered, you don't know Shi Yisheng. What's the use of being a hostage? Don't show off your heroism here, go out quickly. The girl's heart cooled halfway. Tianyuan did not give up. I don't know what uncle's true purpose is, but I believe you must have taken this decision out of helplessness. But now you are gambling, and it is highly likely that you will lose. I have also seen Shi Yisheng, who is now on the second floor. If the little girl is really important to him, will he continue to hide upstairs and not come down? Uncle remained silent. Tianyuan continued, and even if you get the money in this way, what can you do and where can you go? Uncle continued to remain silent. Since it's a problem that can only be solved with Shi Yisheng, it probably requires money, Tianyuan said as he took out 10,000 yuan from his bag for opening an account. Uncle, I don't know how much money you need, but I promise to try my best to help you find a solution. The uncle was momentarily moved and said, I do need money. A lot of money, you don't even have enough change. When police finished clearing the scene, they discovered the countryside in front of the hall and asked each other about the situation, but no one knew what was going on. The captain of the criminal investigation team could see that both sides were communicating, indicating that everyone should not go over. This decision has been of great help to the countryside, and he can continue to inquire with the uncle about the situation. Is it really only possible to solve it with money? Is there no other solution? What can be done? The uncle asked in reverse. Tianyuan was lost in thought, speculating that since the uncle in front of him appeared in the stock market sales department, it was likely due to losses and bankruptcy in stock trading, as well as owing high-interest loans and other things. "Uncle, you have to trust police. See, they will help you." The uncle looked at the countryside again with vigilance, and his emotions suddenly became excited. "I don't need their help. I need money," he said. I don't know why Uncle Tian suddenly became excited again, but he could only calm his emotions and promise to help him raise money. "It takes a lot of money, you can't raise that much," the uncle said, feeling low and muttering softly, "That software is the hard work of the four of us for 20 years, and it requires a lot of money." Software. Tianyuan tried to recall in his mind that every word uncle had whispered just now, and he was sure to mention software. He quickly asked, "Uncle, when you said software, was it mistakenly deleted?" "Software is all written by humans and can be rewritten." "Rewriting, what you said was lightweight. That software is a complex stock trading system, and just handwritten source code paper has a big box." The uncle suddenly paused as he spoke, as if remembering something, and his tone suddenly became excited. "Big box, yes, big box. Although I don't understand what a big box means in the countryside, it can be confirmed that there is hope for this matter." The uncle looked at the police officers near the seats in the lobby and muttered to himself, "What have I done? How can I go back now?" Tianyuan saw uncle's concern and approached Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, saying to him, "Uncle, although you took hostages with a knife, it did not cause any substantial harm. If you can get the forgiveness of the parties involved, the punishment can be reduced, perhaps just detention for a month." "It's too late to go back." The uncle fell into silence again in frustration. The countryside could hear the urgency of the situation, but no matter how much he asked the uncle, he didn't speak up. Police officer C saw that there was no movement here and decided to send someone over to check the situation. Uncle saw that Officer C had made a move, and in a panic, he took out a wallet from his pocket and threw it towards the countryside. "Young man, Uncle can only rely on you," he said. Tianyuan quickly reached out his hands to pick up the wallet. "You say." The uncle spoke very quickly, but his words were clear as he told the countryside, "There is an entrance card for the garden community in the wallet. You can find my house in HH City, and there is a key hanging behind the bedroom door. It belongs to the old house at number 124, 32, YP Road, HP District. You can go there, find the large suitcase on the top of the cabinet, and then send it to the handwritten address on the small note in the wallet." At such a fast pace, most people would have been confused, but Tianyuan remembered it word for word. He spent 3 seconds reorganizing the sentence. "Find the big suitcase at 124 Old House, 32, YP Road, HP District, HH City, and deliver it to the address written on the small note." "Yes." As if holding it in the water for a long time and finally taking a breath, the uncle completely relaxed and threw the fruit knife on the ground, waiting for the police to arrest him. Then he whispered to the countryside, "Be sure to keep it confidential as soon as possible. There are still many questions about the countryside, such as who should hand over the large suitcase to. Why is it so urgent? But the uncle has already been taken away by police officer C, and he and the little girl also have to go to the police station to take notes afterwards. As for the questions in the countryside's heart, he can only find answers on his own." Chapter 4. I Am Her Brother. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After completing the transcript, Tianyuan chatted with the kidnapped girl for a while. The girl expressed her gratitude. In her opinion, although the rural behavior was a bit scary, both the original intention and the result were good. During the conversation, Tianyuan learned that the girl's name is Xian Qing and she lives in a small county in the same province as B City. She just graduated from high school and came to look for a job. Due to her low education, Manager Lu of the sales department rejected her. Having failed to find a job and encountering such a situation again, Xian Qing felt a bit depressed. Countryside is puzzled. After graduating from high school, she is eager to work, afraid that her family is not very wealthy, but considering her self-esteem, it is inconvenient to ask more questions. Seeing Xian Qing's sad expression, Tianyuan decided to help her. Come with me. Intuitively telling Xian Qing that the boy was reliable, she followed suit. Tianyuan brought Xian Qing back to the TH Securities branch. As soon as they entered the trading hall, someone recognized him, and his story of saving people had already been widely circulated, even embellished with embellishments such as dissuading robbers in a few words, and subduing criminals with bare hands. Some investors spontaneously applauded him. Tianyuan just politely responded with a smile. At this moment, he was thinking about what the robber uncle had entrusted, so he had to hurry up. Quickly, he led Xian Qing into Manager Lu's office. Manager Lu had already taken a special car back, and at that moment he was chatting with someone on the landline about what had just happened, repeatedly asking them, "Can I turn the tide this time? Am I very skilled?" Suddenly, someone burst in without even knocking on the door, which made Manager Lu very angry. He was about to get angry, but found out that the two parties involved in this incident were the ones who came in. He quickly hung up the phone and stood up to say, "Hello, young man, it was thanks to you just now." Manager Lu reached out his hand and wanted to shake hands to express gratitude, but Tianyuan stood still. Manager Lu felt a bit embarrassed and then opened his mouth to talk to Xian Qing. Before he could speak, Tianyuan asked with a serious expression, "Should we give the little girl an explanation for what happened in the sales department?" Manager Lu was taken aback for a moment, then understood their purpose. He put away his smile, took a step around the countryside, frowned, and asked Xian Qing, "What do you want to say?" The other party's tone was a bit fierce, which made Xian Qing feel a bit scared. She instinctively touched the countryside. Upon seeing the situation, Tianyuan was furious and took a horizontal step to block Xian Qing from behind. He loudly questioned, "Your company's sales department failed to take precautions, which allowed criminals to take advantage and threatened everyone's personal safety." Manager Lu felt a little guilty when he saw the pastoral momentum. "You are serious, young man, this is just an accident." Tianyuan became even angrier upon hearing this and said, "As a top securities company in the country, is this the only level of service?" Manager Lu was momentarily speechless. "And it's not an accident. It's not your decision. If you don't give the little girl an opinion, I will call 9NNN immediately to complain." "Young man, don't get excited. It's easy to say, easy to say." After hearing about the complaint, Manager Lu finally realized that the countryside was well prepared and definitely not easy to provoke. He quickly pointed his finger towards the sofa and said, "Sit down, two of you. Let's talk slowly about your thoughts." Tianyuan didn't have time to talk to him in detail, so he stood still and stared at Manager Lu, which made him feel uneasy. "Young man, if you want an explanation without saying what you want, what should I do?" Tianyuan sneered, "Don't people with high school education deserve a job?" Manager Lu understood and slowly lowered his head, relaxing his shoulders. "So that's it. Oh my, you misunderstood. It's like this. When the little girl came to apply this morning, the position was already full. But the HR department just informed me that there is another position that needs manpower. In fact, if you don't come, I will also inform the little girl." Manager Lu looked at the countryside and Xian Qing behind him with a smile on his face. Xian Qing thought to herself that this person is really good at talking. She didn't even leave a phone number and said to notify herself. Fortunately, after the negotiation, her work was settled and she didn't want to make things difficult for Manager Lu anymore. "Any position is fine, I can do anything as long as I have a job." Good, great." Manager Lu smiled when he saw Xian Qing speaking so well. "I'll notify HR to arrange your work now." The goal of helping Xian Qing with her work in the countryside has been achieved. Out of courtesy, He said thank you to manager Lu and reminded Xian Qing to sign a labor contract before hastily leaving. At this moment, there are only a little over 6 days left until the college entrance examination is fully calculated, and the countryside must race against time. He returned home, packing his luggage and calculating the time. It takes about 18 hours by train to HH City, and at least 2 hours to reach Uncle's old house. It also takes about 4 hours to reach the address written on the small note. That is to say, even if the time for asking for directions and searching for things is not included, the round-trip journey alone takes 2 days and 2 nights. Tianyuan knows that since he has decided to help Uncle, the review plan for the college entrance examination will definitely be delayed. Although it's not a problem to get into the target university with a good foundation, don't think about competing for the top spot in the college entrance examination. If you don't study for a few days, you will definitely be surpassed by other top students. What's even more anxious is that he doesn't know who to hand over the big box to. And how urgent is it to make a middle-aged man so anxious? After packing up my luggage, the countryside thought about it again. At this moment, my family on a long journey must not be at ease, so I might as well find an excuse to go to Jin Zhigao's house to study and stay there at night. In order to prevent any leaks, he communicated with Jin Zhigao again. After confirming that there were no mistakes, Tianyuan rushed to the train station with his luggage. The next afternoon at 2 o'clock, the train finally arrived in HH City. This place is hotter than B City, but the situation is urgent. The countryside can't care too much and is sweating profusely looking for a taxi. He walked several hundred meters in a row and finally found an empty car, but the driver didn't know Uncle's garden community. After asking 4 colleagues in a row, the taxi driver finally found out how to get there. After arriving at the garden community, Tianyuan encountered a new problem. Although the access card in his hand had the house number written on it, it did not indicate which building it was. Unfortunately, this community is very large, with many buildings. The countryside furrowed its brows and thought to itself, what should we do? You can't try the keys one by one, what if you're mistaken for a thief? After thinking for a while, he decided to wait until it was dark and confirm whether the lights on the same door numbers of each building were on, so as to narrow down the range. Then go to the house where the lights are not on and knock on the door. If there is no response, finally use the key to test the door. Countryside sighed with emotion that doing good deeds can also be so embarrassing. After enduring the heat for several hours, I climbed many stairs in succession. After almost exhaustion, he finally opened the door to his uncle's house. He was startled as soon as he entered the room. This is a 3-bedroom, 2-living-room large house, decorated very avant-garde, but obviously someone has come in, as if looking for something. The interior is already in a mess. The wardrobe and drawers are all open, and items are scattered all over the ground. It's strange that valuable items are all there, not even the cash in the drawer is lost. It seems that the goal of the person entering the room is not money, but something else. Does Uncle have any secrets? What exactly is his family hiding? As his curiosity about the countryside was aroused, he began to explore in various rooms. There is a family portrait hanging at the head of the bed in the master bedroom, which should be an uncle's family of 3, and the girl in the middle is very cute. The bedboard was opened, the wardrobe door was also open, and clothes were thrown everywhere. Stepping out of the bedroom and into the study, the countryside discovered that the computer case should have been moved, but the monitor was still there, and the mouse, keyboard, and various connecting cables were in a mess. The CD holder on one side of the computer desk is empty, and the floppy disk case next to the printer is also empty. The bookshelf has obviously been tampered with by someone, and after a glance at the countryside, most of them are books on stocks and programming. He remembered the software, stock trading system, and source code mentioned by his uncle. From this perspective, Uncle probably lost some stock trading software and was forced to compensate. The other party probably didn't believe the uncle, so they went to his house to search and even took away storage devices such as hard drives, CDs, and floppy disks. Countryside pondered, this property is worth a lot, and uncle should not be short of money. What kind of software can force wealthy uncles to raise money in illegal ways? Of course, there is also a possibility that since the uncle mentioned having an old house, the house in front of him may be rented. In that case, he may have lost a lot of money in stock trading and was forced to repay his debts, right? What's wrong with stock trading software? We can only continue to search for clues, and the countryside comes to a small bedroom, which is filled with pink. This must be the room of the uncle's daughter. This room has less furniture and fewer items, so it is much neater than other rooms. Just thinking about it, no one would leave a computer or disk in a child's room. As the countryside was about to leave the room, he found an art board, and a painting on it suddenly caught his attention, making him suddenly nervous. This is a landscape painting drawn with a watercolor pen, which looks like an ordinary landscape, but coincidentally, in the countryside, it was scanned with extra light. He noticed that the lines of the mountains and rivers presented the shape of an English SOS. Immediately after, the countryside discovered that 95 was written in red in the upper right corner of the painting. Is this a score? As a student who has taken art classes for 12 years, in his impression, he has never seen such a high-scoring art assignment. Upon careful consideration, 95 is not exactly the homophonic meaning of "save me" in Chinese. If SOS is a coincidence, is saving me also a coincidence? Tianyuan tried to recall the state when the uncle begged for help. Was it because his daughter was kidnapped? Thinking about it, his heart began to accelerate. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door, which made him tremble with fear. Tianyuan walked up to the gate, lowered his voice and tried to imitate the uncle's tone, asking, "Who?" The person outside hesitated for a few seconds and said, "Is that Brother Shen?" "I'm Xiaoling. It's been a long time since your family came back." Tianyuan was surprised. "Who is Xiaoling?" "I know that uncle's family hasn't returned for a long time, so they should be from the same unit. What should we do? Do you want to open the door?" He was thinking quickly. He couldn't open the door. The other person doesn't know him, and the family is so messy, I'm afraid I can't explain clearly. Tianyuan pinched his nose and said, "It's me. I've caught a little cold. I'll talk to you when I'm better." Okay. The other party seemed to have left, and Tianyuan quickly continued to search for clues. He went back to look at the painting and found that there was a Shen character written in the upper left corner, and another red heart was drawn. Shen Xian. Uncle's daughter's name is Shen Xian, right? Countryside combed through various clues and felt that the possibility of uncle's family being kidnapped was the greatest. The target of the kidnappers is either a huge sum of money or that stock trading software. So it's important to find that big box of handwritten source code. Tianyuan quickly went to the bedroom door to find the key to the old house. The key is still there, and the heart hanging in the countryside has been temporarily relieved. With the source code, I should be able to save my uncle's family. Thinking that his neighbor had already become suspicious, he had to avoid unnecessary complications. Tianyuan quickly tidied up uncle's house. I found some food while tidying up and also had dinner. After a meal of tidying up, it was already late at night. Although the situation was urgent, the countryside no longer had the strength to rush on. He decided to stay overnight at his uncle's house. It was already the morning of July 2nd when I woke up, with only 5 days left until the college entrance examination. Relying on his youth, the countryside recovered well in terms of physical fitness. After washing up, he went out for breakfast and returned to the living room to plan his next itinerary. After a while, as expected, there was a knock on the door, and Tianyuan opened it without even asking. 2 men wearing property security uniforms stood at the door. "Hello, we are from the property." It's like this, someone reported that there was a strange noise in the unit's arms, and we were afraid of mice, so we were conducting door-to-door inspections. Tianyuan smiled and thought to herself that Xiaoling must have suspected that uncle's house had been burglarized. She went to Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, so she went to the property management. The property management is also clever enough to find such an excuse. Fortunately, I was well prepared and tidied up my room before going out to buy breakfast. I also suspect there are mice. Please come in, both of you. The two security guards were taken aback, not expecting the other to agree so readily. Tianyuan smiled and said, "Take a look and I'll make tea for you too." The security guard verbally declined a few words and then divided their heads to check. While the countryside was preparing tea in the kitchen, they whispered a few words. Both of them agreed that the house was very tidy without any signs of being overturned, and they had never seen a thief dare to stay overnight at the owner's house and even go out to buy breakfast in the morning. To be on the safe side, the two of them tentatively asked about the identity of the countryside. In order to completely dispel the suspicion of the security guard, Tianyuan claimed to be a relative of this family and Shen Xian's cousin. The two security guards looked at each other and whispered to each other. "Is his daughter's name Shen Xian?" "I don't know what my name is, but it must be Shen." Tianyuan keenly confirmed the uncle's surname Shen from their mouth movements, and suddenly felt a sense of confidence in his heart. "What's wrong? Is there any problem?" The security guard smiled and said, "No problem. Well, we have checked and there are no mice. So if we hear any more abnormal noises, we can make a phone call and we'll be on call." After the security guard left, the countryside chief breathed a sigh of relief and wrote a note. On June 30th, Uncle Shen was in B City. You can call him at 0.23456789. The reason for writing this sentence, and leaving the phone number of the B City police station, is to leave a clue for the person looking for Uncle Shen, and if anyone suspects that they are a thief and reports to the police, they can also explain to police C. The countryside picked up the suitcase and the keys to the old house, and he had to immediately get up and rush to the old house. Chapter 5. Going to the meeting alone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Uncle Shen's old house is located in the city center, and that house is really old. Not to mention its small size, the window frame is still wooden, and the balcony is also open-air. It is estimated that even thieves will not think there is anything valuable inside. The countryside successfully found a large suitcase on the top of the cabinet, which was already covered in dust. He cleaned up and finally worked hard to move, only to find that it wasn't as heavy as he had imagined. Opening the suitcase, the countryside saw a large stack of handwritten program code papers and several boxes of 3.5-inch floppy disks. He further examined and found that the sticker on the floppy disk was marked with the serial number, along with a piece of paper. The content is roughly as follows. The source code is a set of software with a stock trading system. Some of the code has been entered into the floppy disk, and the handwritten part has not been entered yet. Tianyuan guessed the context of the matter, which should be a valuable stock trading system. The uncle collaborated with someone to write the program, but he accidentally deleted the software, and the other party demanded compensation. It's probably too precious, that's why the other party is so madly forcing him. But no matter how precious the software is, it is definitely not as important as family, that's why uncle is so anxious to raise money. Fortunately, the source code was retained, and as long as the software can be restored, the other party should be satisfied. Tianyuan didn't have much time to think, so he buttoned up his suitcase and stepped on a stool to take a look at the top of the cabinet, only to find something else on top. Take it down and take a look, it's a DVD burning disc, very thick. The front of the disc is shiny as new, and the label on the back reads, Training System. The question is this CD also part of the stock software? Can it be uncle's own thing? After thinking for a moment, Tianyuan decided to bring this CD with him and hand it over to them if requested. Thinking of this, he took out a water-based pen and imitated the handwriting of the 4 words, Training System, adding the 4 words, simulated driving, in front of it, and then hid the CD in the interlayer of the luggage compartment. Carrying one's own suitcase is relatively easy, but carrying a large suitcase can be quite challenging. The countryside decided to leave unnecessary things at the old house and stuff the handwritten code and floppy disk into the suitcase, even though it was still heavy. But the situation is urgent, he can only persevere. After tidying up, he went out to a small shop in the countryside to have lunch. After taking a break, he rushed to the station and will be heading to the last stop of his trip. The address written on the small note. H1 City. It was already dusk when he arrived, and the countryside called a taxi. On the way, the driver told him that the place he was going to was a demolished building, and the vast majority of people had already moved away. He also reminded him to be careful when it was getting late. Tianyuan thanked the driver, and his intuition told him that choosing such a place to hand over would definitely not be a good person for him. Those who can kidnap the uncle's family must be those with anger and violent tendencies. Although they have no grievances or grudges with the other party, accidents cannot be ruled out. After careful consideration, Tianyuan called Jin Zhigao and said, "I will talk to you every 6 hours. If you don't call for 3 consecutive times, you will call the police." Then, he hung up the phone under the extremely shocked questioning of Jin Zhigao. The communities that are preparing for demolition usually have no water or electricity, and the same goes for this area. The buildings with their doors and windows removed are pitch black, and the countryside can only rely on the brightness of street lights and moonlight to move forward. Stepping out a few tens of meters, he heard the sound of a diesel generator and moved forward. I quickly saw a yellow light shining in front of a building. Recalling the taxi driver's reminder, he hid his luggage aside and walked empty-handed to the front of the building, where he saw several people chatting at the door. Even if they see themselves, no one pays attention. This is somewhat unexpected. In the rural imagination, the robber should have a rude attitude, hold a stick in hand, and then be vigilant in driving away those approaching. What should we do? Do you want to come forward and inquire? How to ask? Do you know Uncle Shen? Did you hijack his wife and daughter? Do you need software code? It looks strange no matter how you ask. After thinking for a long time, Tianyuan decided not to ask anything and just put on a posture of looking for someone. After circling around the front and back of the building and pretending to look around, it finally aroused suspicion from the other party. Seeing a person coming out of the hallway in the countryside, he whispered a few words to the person at the door, and then a few people surrounded him. The leader asked, "What are you doing walking around here?" Tianyuan replied, "I helped someone deliver something, but I couldn't find anyone." "What are you giving?" Tianyuan recalled that Uncle Shen initially wanted a sum of money to deal with the kidnappers, so he should have said to give money. "But the identity of the group in front of us is uncertain, and we cannot withdraw money. If you withdraw money, even if the other party is not a kidnapper, they may still be robbed. Speak up, what are you giving?" "Uncle Shen called me here, I need to see before I can speak." A few people hesitated for a moment, then walked back to the staircase and whispered a few words to the person who had come out earlier. The person made a gesture, and the people around him couldn't help but drag the countryside over. Tianyuan was a bit angry, but upon closer inspection, the person waving was a bald man, with all his flesh and tendons that he couldn't afford to provoke. The bald man asked in a contemptuous tone, "Who are you?" Tianyuan was just a thin and frail young man. Faced with such a group of big men, he couldn't help feeling a little scared, but he could only pretend to be calm and answer, "Your elder brother Shen has been arrested in B City. He asked me to help him deliver something." Upon hearing that Brother Shen had been arrested, the bald man furrowed his brows but turned his eyes and asked, "What should I give you?" Tianyuan saw that the other party did not answer the question directly, but instead asked in reverse. Either he did not know Uncle Shen, or he had some concerns. Before confirming his identity, I cannot go into too much detail myself. Of course it's what you want. Don't worry, Uncle Shen told me not to report to the police, and he won't tell police see himself. The bald man seemed to relax a bit and understood the subtext of the countryside. What are you talking about, young man? We are legally demolishing, why call the police? Tianyuan was a bit confused, and then looked at the bald figure and the group around him. Aren't they kidnappers, but people from real estate companies who specialize in harassing nail households? Oh, maybe I found the wrong person, sorry to bother you. The countryside is afraid of unexpected branches, so it turns around and wants to leave. Just a few steps away, a voice suddenly came from the hallway. Does Lao Shen not want his wife and children anymore? Countryside surprised, it turned out they were really kidnappers. He quickly turned around and shouted, don't mess around. I have already brought what you want. Ha ha ha. The person in the hallway laughed heartily, don't worry, we only seek wealth and don't harm our lives. You wait a moment. Half a minute later, two men, one tall and one short, walked out of the hallway. Probably feeling guilty, they are all wearing masks. The tall man patted the shoulder of the countryside and said, where is the thing? I need to confirm the safety of the hostages first. Hey, young man, you can't talk nonsense. They're not hostages. Look at this place being so remote, it's too dangerous for the mother and daughter to live here. As old friends, we're just helping to take care of them. Tianyuan thought to himself, it's really a reversal of black and white. House arrest can still be said so beautifully. The short man thought for a moment and said, take him to take a look. The bald man next to him gave Tianyuan a fierce glare and said, don't play tricks. Then he took him upstairs. This is a very old residential building, with households connected in a long corridor. Tianyuan followed the bald man all the way to the middle of the third floor and saw two people standing in front of a house. Bald greeted the gatekeeper and then led the countryside into the door. After passing through the kitchen, the bald man lifted his hand and said, people are inside. Looking into the countryside through a glass window, there are two people in the living room. A middle-aged woman is sitting on a distant sofa, and a little girl is studying at a nearby desk. Upon hearing the commotion outside the door, the middle-aged woman looked alertly, while the little girl only slightly lowered her head. This is a challenge for the countryside. Inside, just like in front of the building, there are only yellow light bulbs powered by diesel generators. In the dim light, it is difficult to see the face of a middle-aged woman clearly, while the girl near her is half bowing her head and her face is not fully visible. Are they actually Uncle Shen's wife and daughter? The countryside can only desperately recall the family portrait of the uncle's family. Although the little girl is several years older than when the photo was taken, her eyebrows and eyes are very beautiful, which is consistent. When he wanted to call Shen Xian to confirm his identity, the bald man refused to give him a chance. Alright, people have also seen it. Let's go. Tianyuan wanted to struggle, but his strength differed too much from the other party, so he was invited downstairs. Upon seeing two men, one tall and one short, Tianyuan immediately said, Uncle Shen asked me to bring something more valuable than ransom, the source code of the stock software. Two men coincidentally showed surprised expressions. The short man squinted his eyes and stared at the countryside, asking, are you telling the truth? Old Shen didn't come up with such a reason to delay time because he couldn't raise money, did he? What, is this software not worth money now? How could it be? The tall man suddenly interjected loudly, startling everyone around him. That's not just an ordinary software. It's a stock trading system, the hard work of the four of us for many years, and it's also an invaluable treasure. Tianyuan confirmed that the stock trading system must be what these kidnappers want. That's right, Uncle Shen told me personally where the source code is stored, which must be true. Would he joke about the safety of his wife and daughter? The tall man smiled and said with a strange expression, young man, you don't know anything. The trading system was designed by the four of us together. For the sake of confidentiality, we agreed to save the source code separately. After the entire program design was completed, in order to prevent leaks, we gathered together and burned all the handwritten manuscripts. How could Lao Shen possibly have the complete source code? Tianyuan was taken aback and asked, since the program has been designed, do we still need the source code? The short man sneered, do you think it's a coincidence? Just recently, both of our computers were hacked and our stock software was damaged. Tianyuan understood. These two people were suspecting that Uncle Shen had hacked their computer and that Uncle Shen wanted to monopolize this stock software. How can you be sure that this was done by Uncle Shen, not another person? The two men looked at each other with a smile, and the tall man said, that person passed away young, so it can only be done by Lao Shen. Can't that be other hackers? At first, we were not sure, but when we found Lao Shen, he said he had withdrawn from the stock market and also said that the stock software had been deleted. Tianyuan was taken aback. And he refused to hand over the computer to us for data recovery, so it can be confirmed that he did it. Perhaps his computer has already been sold, or maybe it has been stolen. Impossible. We just went to his house. The short man gave the tall man a fierce pat. What are you doing with me? The countryside immediately understood that it was they who went to Uncle Shen's house to steal. You must have misunderstood him. Firstly, it is difficult to recover such a complex program from data recovery. Secondly, Uncle Shen cannot ignore the safety of his wife and daughter, otherwise he cannot run to be city. He paused for a moment and said, kidnapping and extorting like you do. The tall man roared, we're not kidnapping. We're helping our old friend take care of his wife and daughter. The short man became impatient and said, all right, stop analyzing it and take a look. Where is the source code you mentioned? Follow me to pick it up. Tianyuan walked with two people to the nearby bushes and took out the suitcase. Returning to the hallway again, Tianyuan took out the handwritten manuscript from his suitcase and a stack of floppy disks. The two men couldn't wait to start flipping through the pages and said, King, there's really a part where I'm responsible for programming. Look for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Yes, Xiao Wang, this handwriting belongs to Lao Shen. This guy is really cunning, he secretly restored the entire set of program code himself. Perhaps excited by the source code, the two of them relaxed their guard, took off their masks, and also addressed each other, which made Tianyuan know that their surnames were both Wang. The tall man Xiao Wang looked at the thickness of the manuscript and said, but it's not enough, that's only half. The short man Wang picked up a floppy disk and said, isn't there another floppy disk? There's also a piece of paper. He walked over to the light and carefully looked, that's right, the other half has already been inputted. That's great. It's a breeze. Seeing the two people in the countryside approve of Uncle Shen's things, they let go of half of their worries and said, Uncle, since you have obtained what you want, you can let them go. The king glanced at the countryside and said, young man, we need to confirm. How do I know if this code is the same as the original version? This answer made the pastoral feel uneasy. First, he felt that the code was derived and reconstructed by Uncle Shen in reverse according to the good software, which was difficult to be the same as the original version. Secondly, to verify, it is necessary to input all handwritten parts into the computer, which may take a long time. At this point, Tianyuan knew it was difficult for him to persuade the other party to let go, so he could only tentatively communicate, "Two uncles, I have the college entrance examination on the 7th, and it will take at least 20 hours to get home. Can you verify it as soon as possible?" Xiao Wang snorted suspiciously, "You see, I know Lao Shen is a selfish person who uses any means to achieve his goals. He even asked a child who is about to take the college entrance examination to help him." The king patted the countryside and said, "Young man, you can go back. Your task has been completed, prepare well for the exam." Chapter 6. Life Choices. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tianyuan thought for a moment, and since he had chosen to help Uncle Shen, he should confirm the safety of his wife and daughter, so that when he sees him again in the future, there can be a definite answer. He said to the second king, I can't explain to Uncle Shen when I go back like this. I said I would confirm the safety of my mother and daughter. The king sneered, aren't they okay? It's very safe. We just need to check the source code. The code must be real, no one can take the risk of their family's safety. Xiao Wang became impatient and said, anyway, we won't release anyone until we confirm the code is correct. As for whether you want to stay and see the results, you can wait at our hotel. Tianyuan nodded and said, okay. I can help you input the code together. De Wang smiled and said, our source code cannot be shown to outsiders. I see that you are also a sincere person and can promise to verify it as soon as possible. This way, when you arrive at the hotel, you can open a room and prepare well for the exam. Seeing that Tianyuan did not answer, the king continued, what? Don't you believe us? We were all programmers before. Tianyuan clasped his hands and said, then please. The second king fulfilled his promise and immediately started inputting the source code into the computer upon returning to the hotel. But what they care about is not the rural college entrance examination, but the desire to quickly restore the stock trading system inside. Although they come from a programmer background, they suffer from aging and their energy is no longer as strong as before. After losing for a long time, they feel tired and dizzy. Two people pondered and realized that there was a huge amount of source code, and even if Tianyuan helped input a part, he couldn't pry into the secrets inside. This is a correct decision, as the efficiency has significantly improved after joining the countryside. 3 people are typing the keyboard day and night. In order to save time, Tianyuan no longer calls Jin Zhigao every 6 hours, but instead sends text messages. Until the late night of July 5th, they finally finished typing all the handwritten code. The king immediately imported the other half of the code from the floppy disk, preparing to generate software for final verification, while Tianyuan fell asleep exhausted on the table. The next morning, the countryside was awakened by the discussion of the 2 kings. It turned out that there was a problem while generating the software, and the 2 of them were discussing countermeasures. Tianyuan walked over with sleepy eyes and said, let me take a look. Xiao Wang was a bit surprised and said, do you understand? I have learned a little. Tianyuan's answer is very humble. In fact, he not only understands, but also won a gold medal in the National High School Programming Competition. If it weren't for being too anxious, he wouldn't have made such a request. He knew that the trading system in the software was someone else's hard work, so there was no need to cause trouble. The king thought for a moment and said, tell him to give it a try. Xiao Wang hesitated and stood up, then said in a stern tone, then take a look, but I warn you that if you dare to reveal a little bit, your family will be caught in the demolition building next time. Tianyuan smiled and said, Uncle, I'm worried too much. Can I remember such a long code? Xiao Wang is right when he thinks about it. Even if he is given a month, he is unlikely to remember so much program code, let alone in such a short period of time. Tianyuan began to quickly browse the content and check for any bugs. Time passes by minute by second. Quickly, Jin Zhigao replied to Tianyuan's text message, I helped you obtain your admission ticket and will pick it up at my house when you come back. What the hell did you do? Hurry up and come back. Tianyuan calculated that it would take at least 20 hours to rush back to B City to collect exam supplies and admission tickets. In other words, he must fix the software before noon today. The countryside with full firepower finally solved the software problem at exactly 10 o'clock. The second king was very happy to see it and called the bald man to release him. He even thanked the countryside and urged him to go back for the exam as soon as possible. The countryside realized that there was still some time left for the wealthy, and thought about rushing back to the demolished building to tell his wife and daughter about Uncle Shen's situation. Later, thinking that oral communication was too slow, I decided to write a letter. After writing the letter, he quickly rushed back to the demolished building. After entering the unit, I met a bald man leading Shen and his wife downstairs at the corner of the stairs. Upon seeing the situation, the countryside walked around the bald man and handed the letter to Shen's wife, leaving behind a message that said, "I still have to hurry, we'll have a chance to talk again." Then they hurriedly left. Seeing the countryside walking away, the bald man snatched the letter. After reading the content, he was worried that it would become physical evidence for kidnapping hostages, so he tore it up and even put the fragments in his pocket. Shen's wife felt very helpless at the sight, so she had to desperately recall the moment she saw the countryside. She had to remember the face of the life-saving benefactor. When Tianyuan arrived at the station, there were only 21 hours left before the start of the college entrance examination. July 7th is the first day of the National College Entrance Examination. The entrance of 101 Middle School in B City is crowded with people, and candidates are orderly entering the examination room in anticipation of their parents. Several outstanding students from number 21 Middle School are assigned here, including those from the countryside. The school leaders attach great importance and gather outside the school gate early to cheer on the candidates. As the start of the exam approached, the number of people at the school gate gradually decreased, but the figure of the countryside was not seen for a long time. The only student in the school who has the ability to compete for the top spot in the college entrance examination will be late, which has made the school leaders present very anxious. After multiple contacts, school staff confirmed that Tianyuan did not enter the examination room, and his phone was turned off, and there was no answer from his landline at home. The homeroom teacher of Class 1 in Grade 3 is holding a rural admission ticket, which Jin Zhigao brought to her this morning, but even he doesn't know where the countryside has gone. Due to helplessness, the 21st Middle School sent people to rush to the countryside while inspecting the way. Everyone is racing against time, hoping to find the slightest trace of their rural whereabouts. Quickly, it was time for the exam to start, and Tianyuan still hadn't appeared. The atmosphere became increasingly tense, and everyone present knew that the 15 minutes after the exam bell rang could become the determining moment for the future of the countryside. Time passed by minute by second, and the teaching director of number 21 Middle School thought that if he was late for the countryside, it would affect the school's honor and his promotion. He was both anxious and angry, constantly complaining, "I'm fine with running around. What's wrong with his family? Don't you even accompany him on such important days?" The candidates were nervously taking the exam. At the same time, in the TH Securities Trading Hall of B City, Xian Qing, a girl who had been saved by Tianyuan, stood by the window, gazing in the direction of Tianyuan's departure, silently reciting, "Boy, let's go for the college entrance examination." In the end, Tianyuan was late. He sat in the taxi and gazed at the exam room for a long time, even the driver could feel his regret. As soon as the college entrance examination was over, some people in the school began to talk about the fact that the countryside did not take the exam. An informant suggested, a few days ago, there was a high school student in the securities company who acted bravely for justice. I wonder if it was him. The school immediately sent someone to investigate and confirmed that the high school student was from Tianyuan. The school leaders speculate that he may have been injured while acting bravely, so he was unable to take the college entrance examination. If that's the case, we must not let a student with both moral integrity and talent deviate from the path of life. Tianyuan usually has excellent grades, and if he had agreed, the school would have already recommended him to a university. Now he is willing to act bravely, and as long as the public knows, there will be people supporting him in being recruited by a university, or the school will come forward to help him fight for additional admission opportunities to several universities. However, after visiting the countryside, the school leaders found that he was not injured and his condition was normal. They even said that he gave up the college entrance examination. The school held an emergency meeting and engaged in a heated debate for this. The teaching director believes that Tianyuan is addicted to stock research, and his ability to run to a securities company before the college entrance examination means that his goal is to become a stock investor rather than going to college. The homeroom teacher of Class 1 in Grade 3 speculated that he may have been intimidated and psychologically traumatized while acting bravely, which led to his disappearance before the college entrance examination. Both sides had their own opinions, and the more they argued, the more fierce it became. Finally, the head of the education suggested that Tianyuan could stay on campus for another year. His homeroom teacher immediately retorted, "His grades in the countryside are outstanding, and there is no need to repeat. The school should work hard to strive for him to be re-enrolled. Only those with outstanding grades should repeat their studies, which can also bring glory to the school. Youth is fleeting, we should not waste children's precious time for the honor of the school." The two of them started arguing again. Finally, the school decided to communicate with the countryside again. In fact, Tianyuan is not opposed to re-recording, but his concern is that once his own rescue story is exposed, the two kings who kidnapped Uncle Shen's wife and daughter will become wanted criminals. If they are pressured, they may have even more terrifying behavior. Tianyuan didn't want to go to school, but was forcibly dragged by Jin Jigao. On the morning of July 11th, the atmosphere in the Academic Affairs office was somewhat solemn, just like the previous one. The teaching director asked with a furrowed brow, "Countryside, did you give up the college entrance examination on your own?" A cold answer from the countryside. "I should have this freedom. You see, I'm not wrong. He gave up on the college entrance examination himself." The homeroom teacher looked shocked and said, "Why on earth?" Countryside silence. "Countryside, you've made up your mind. The college entrance examination is an important step in determining your future. If you don't take the exam, it's like..." The teaching director was a bit impatient. "You don't have to tell him, he doesn't understand anything. All right, let's not talk so much nonsense. Countryside, I'll ask you for the last time. Have you really thought of it? Actually, you can repeat it. Stop reading, I've already thought of it." The teaching director was a bit angry and said, "Is that worth all these years of hard study in the cold window? Is there also a way to cultivate your parents and your school?" Tianyuan snorted, "And your career path, right? You." The teaching director was seen through his mind and angrily patted the table. But after spending 3 years together, he also understood the young man in front of him, and this conversation only became more and more broken. "I've heard some statements, are you really competing with me?" Countryside sneer. "I am doing it for the benefit of more people." "What does it mean?" "You must have more than 20 so-called backward students who are forcing them to transfer by any means possible, right?" The teaching director was furious, "Don't speak recklessly. Those students are all voluntary." Voluntary? Which student would voluntarily give up studying in a key high school? It was all your insults and slanders that hurt their self-esteem and forced them to leave. Jin Jigao in the corridor heard arguments indoors and quickly went in to persuade the countryside to leave the scene. After leaving the countryside, the atmosphere at the teaching office was quite awkward. They promised to give him a chance, but they parted ways unhappily. As others left one after another, the vice principal advised the teaching director, "Don't be angry. This kid has been having objections to you, and it's normal if we can't discuss it properly. In fact, I have another way." After a whisper, the teaching director asked with a puzzled expression, "Is it possible?" "Definitely. This is currently the best plan. The TV station will interview him and expose his acts of bravery, which will only benefit him without any harm and also demonstrate the level of moral education in our school." "That's right. This method is great," the head teacher thought. "In that case, it's not important whether to repeat or make up for it in the countryside. Just emphasize to the reporter at the school's moral education is their own responsibility, which is also a good thing to add glory in glory." The leader's thinking is still comprehensive. The vice principal walked out of the teaching office, pondering in his heart how to take credit for himself. Tianyuan and Jin Zhigao are currently reminiscing about their high school years on campus. As his pastoral mood gradually stabilized, Jin Zhigakai asked him where he had gone before the college entrance examination and why he didn't want to seize the opportunity to make up for it and go to college. Tianyuan replied, "Don't ask so many questions. It's not that I don't trust you, it's that there is indeed a certain level of danger in this matter. The fewer people you know, the better. Is there still danger? Then you must be careful. Find Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Of course, maybe in a few years, when it's no longer so dangerous, I can tell you." Jin Zhigao didn't understand. They all said that the countryside was a brave act of righteousness, but he kept it a secret. Unfortunately. Countryside, since you want to keep it a secret, I won't ask much, but are you really going to give up your studies for this? Tianyuan stood up and smiled. Who said I'm giving up my studies? I have my own plan. On July 12, Tianyuan came to the TH Securities Hall again and wanted to complete the account opening procedures that were not completed last time. As soon as I entered, I saw the staff of the TV station. The reporter walked towards him warmly and said, "Are you the young man who acted bravely that day? Can I interview you?" Tianyuan refused the journalist's interview request and then walked straight to the counter. The teaching director who had been guarding the scene for a long time saw the situation and decided to adopt Plan B. He approached the reporter and told him that he was the leader of number 21 middle school. He found the camera and spoke to himself when facing the camera. Firstly, he gave a hypocritical praise to the countryside, and then talked incessantly about the school's moral education, emphasizing that it was his responsibility. The vice principal couldn't be idle when he saw the situation, so he quickly leaned in and interjected a few words from time to time. He also wanted to show his face. The reporter watched helplessly as the two people competed to make a name for themselves until they finished speaking before they had the opportunity to speak up. "Big brothers, the camera hasn't turned on," he said. "Why not open it? Hurry up and open it." The reporter sighed and said, "Tianyuan just said that if this matter is exposed, he will file a complaint against the TV station for violating privacy." 10 minutes later, Tianyuan took the completed procedures and resolutely left under the repeated questioning of the reporter. When he returned home, he found that his parents had returned. Chapter 1. Doctor of Stocks. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In mid-July, 3 girls who graduated from our university in B City returned to campus. They were very excited to revisit their old place, taking photos everywhere in the places where they used to study in live, and soon ran out of film. But their purpose of this trip was not to take photos, but to receive invitations from college classmates and friends in the same dormitory. She has just graduated from graduate school and successfully stayed on campus, so please come back to school and gather together. Approaching noon, she walked out of the school teaching building. "Ying, congratulations." The 3 classmates warmly embraced their former roommates. This is one of the few encounters after graduating from college, and it's also the most intimate one, so everyone is very excited after meeting. Finally, the 4 of them unanimously decided to go to the old place to have a celebration banquet. During the summer vacation, most students have gone home, while a small number of students stay at school to prepare for postgraduate entrance exams or work-study programs. As Ying and his group walked outside the school, they met a girl who was staying on campus. She was hurriedly running towards the playground, shouting in accented dialect, "Come and see, the school grass is back at school." The girls couldn't calm down when they heard the words "school draft." There was a lot of noise on the playground, which puzzled Ying's classmate Xiao Zhang. "Which school grass in our school is so charming? Can a trip back to school cause such a big sensation? And what's wrong with these little girls? I haven't seen handsome guys before. As for how excited they are." Another classmate, Xiao Wang, smiled and said, "Didn't you also be a little girl and have been very interested in handsome guys? Can that be the same?" I'm interested in male celebrities, not boys from our school. Yo, so to say, your taste is really extraordinary. That's it, Xiao Zhang said, turning his head to look at the door and saw a boy walking into the campus. This boy has thick eyebrows, big eyes, and a high nose bridge, standing at a height of 1.85 meters. He has a healthy and symmetrical physique, and is a standard handsome man. What matters most is the warm smile on his face. It's really handsome and charming, no wonder girls call it school grass. Xiao Zhang was momentarily stunned, staring intently at the boy. Obviously, her attitude towards the school draft has changed from full of doubts to full of envy. Xiao Wang saw through her thoughts at a glance and joked, "How's it going?" A tasteful Xiao Zhang, does our school also have handsome guys like male celebrities? Well, handsome, he's rare to attract people. Don't disturb me, let me see him for a while longer. I'm really impressed. At this moment, the girls who had just received the intelligence, like Xiao Zhang, did not conceal their admiration for their school grass classmates. Even some people waved at the boy and loudly greeted him. The boy saw a fan warmly welcoming him, cleverly turned a corner, walked towards them, and waved his hand in greeting. This action directly triggered a burst of cheers. The boy turned to another path, and Ying and his group couldn't meet him head-on, which made Xiao Zhang feel a bit regretful. However, as they got closer to the girl fan group, they heard chattering discussions. Who is this guy? He's so handsome. Don't you even know about him? He is the most handsome school grass in the history of our school, Yang Hongtu. Yang Hongtu, such a domineering name. Yeah, and he's just his name. He was admitted to our university in the youth class and had already obtained a master's degree at the age of 21. He was then sent to study abroad in the United States for a doctoral degree. At the age of 21, graduating with a master's degree and then pursuing a doctoral degree in the United States. That's also amazing. Yes, yes. Oh, it's just about being handsome. You're still so talented. It's not like that. With looks and talent, I will still be very wealthy in the future. How to say it? He went to Migua to study investment and securities, and after graduation, he could easily find a job there with an annual salary of millions of dollars. Wow. If you're studying securities, that's a PhD in stocks. Yeah. Hi, rich and handsome have all gathered together, my family's great career is truly remarkable. What's your family's home to? That's mine. My family, mine. The girls were obsessed with flowers and listened with a black line on their faces. She glanced at Xiao Zhang next to them, who was completely defeated. Ying sighed and said, "That's really enough." Xiao Li, a classmate who had not spoken for a long time, heard her and smiled, patting her. Ying, I remember there was also a junior student at the school grass level who pursued you back then. Isn't this Yang Hongtu? Ying calmly glanced towards the direction of the playground, only able to see the back of Yang Hongtu. I've been pursued by my junior. Who did you hear? Many people know about it. Back then, unlike now, most boys were very rustic, and school grass was a rare species, so it was closely monitored by girls. One of them, chasing my senior sister, was a hot news topic back then. Upon hearing this, Xiao Wang suddenly leaned over and said, "Yes, I can testify that there is indeed a junior who pursues excessive profits." Ying frowned and said, "How can you testify? Have you seen it?" I heard about it. I heard it, I'm really impressed. You guys are still young, you know handsome guys are the least reliable. Look at this guy's seductive behavior, he looks like a playboy. Ying, don't shift the topic. What we are verifying is whether the student who pursued you is Yang Hongtu. Ying no longer answered, but quickened her pace to move forward. A few classmates didn't notice that she had already developed a slight emotional state, and continued to ask, if it's not Yang Hongtu, which student is it? Being repeatedly asked questions that she didn't want to answer, Ying was a bit angry and shouted with her back to her classmates, "Do you still want to eat?" Xiao Li's guess is completely correct. The reason why Ying did not give a direct answer is that she felt that Yang Hongtu was only younger than herself, but he entered the school early and could not be considered a junior. And Yang Hongtu, the school grass, not only pursued excessive profits, but still cares about her to this day. Before taking the graduate entrance exam at our university, he stumbled upon Ying, who was helping to set up the exam room, and was immediately attracted to her. It was standard love at first sight. After the exam, Yang Hongtu inquired around and found out that Ying was from the finance department of our school. In order to have more opportunities to interact in the future, he even applied to transfer to the finance department during his postgraduate studies. Now, amidst the admiring gaze of a group of girls, Yang Hongtu walked into the teaching building. As soon as he entered the door, the mailroom master recognized him and said, "Yang Hongtu, have you returned to China?" "Yeah. Are you coming to see Professor Gu?" Yang Hongtu nodded and walked towards the stairs. The mailroom master sighed and said, "It's rare to even think of professors from our own country when we're all gilded in the United States." The school security guard on the side heard the old man's words and snorted, "I see, his intention is not to drink. What does it mean? Don't you know? This kid always thought about Professor Gu's daughter before going abroad." "Professor Gu's daughter, are you saying?" Ying. Yang Hongtu arrived at the office and was informed that Professor Gu had to go out of town due to unforeseen circumstances. He had to retrace his path and was surrounded by girls as soon as he walked out of the teaching building. The enthusiasm of the fans was unstoppable, so Yang Hongtu simply invited everyone to sit down on the doorstep and enthusiastically told the younger students about their experiences in the United States. Ying, whose mood was affected, hastily took a few bites, bought the order, and then returned to school alone. On the way back, she saw Yang Hongtu sitting among a group of girls chatting and laughing, and her heart became even angrier. She turned around and walked towards the dormitory, muttering, "Big radish with flower heart." Jin Zhigao from number 21 middle school performed exceptionally well in the college entrance examination, with an estimated score much higher than usual. He was in a good mood and went out to play for half a month. After returning to B City, he remembered his friend's countryside, so he rushed to his house as soon as possible to hear what kind of choice he had made in the end. Upon learning that Tianyuan had abandoned the school's proposed plan for supplementary enrollment and did not intend to repeat the course, Jin Zhigao felt very regretful. "Can your family agree to this decision, especially your parents?" Tianyuan let out a sigh and said, "Of course they don't agree. After they found out about my college entrance exam, they took some time out of their busy schedules to go home and used all their skills to present facts and reason for me. They threatened and lured me, but they almost punished me." "Okay. So you've become a hero with a firm will and righteousness. Heroes don't dare to be heroes. When I look at them, I feel that as a scientific researcher, it's too embarrassing for my son not to attend college." "Not entirely, they also want you to have a good future. Why don't you consider it again?" Tianyuan sighed and said, "To be honest, I had the idea of repeating." Jin Zhigao was puzzled. "Why did you decide not to repeat in the end?" "I said I agreed to repeat, and they booked tickets back to work that night. You see, compared to their work, I don't seem to be that important either." Jin Zhigao fell silent. As a child, he witnessed how busy his rural parents were. It's not an exaggeration to say that the two of them spent more time together with the countryside than they did with him. But in the countryside, you can't just give up repeating in anger. No matter how strong your ability is, your education is also very important. I know, I will get a college degree earlier than you all. Ah. Tianyuan pointed to the desk with his finger. Jin Zhigao walked up to check and quickly understood the intention of the countryside. "So you want to take the self-study exam," he said. Tianyuan nodded and said, "Yes, the self-study exam is more flexible and the progress is a bit faster than that of full-time universities. The most important thing is that I now have a major in finance. I plan to study stock trading while taking the self-study exam. So it's like this, you're going to strike on both sides and accelerate your life. Jin Zhigao finally let go of his hanging heart when he heard Tianyuan's decision. On the last day of July, Tianyuan once again entered the TH Securities Trading Hall, preparing to officially familiarize himself with this place and learn about the stock operation process. When familiarizing himself with the operating interface on the ordering machine, he found Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com and accidentally heard a nearby investor talking. They said that famous stock critic Zhou Yangsheng might come to the sales department to give a lecture. As a new investor, when Tianyuan hears the term stock critic, it instinctively reminds him of many classic and satirical stories. Sometimes he would wonder why people have such strong biases against stock analysts. What is the origin of Zhou Yangsheng in their mouths? Why is it named famous in front of stock analysts? Compared to other investors, Tianyuan highly respects stock analysts, especially those who work in institutions. Since someone can sit in that position, they must have that level. As for when commenting, saying that you haven't spoken your mind is another matter. But he also has a question: if this person named Zhou Yangsheng has such strong analytical ability, why not invest in stocks on his own? Is being a stock critic more profitable than trading stocks? Considering that there is still some time before he comes to the sales department to give a lecture, Tianyuan is temporarily not considering this matter. My top priority is to familiarize myself with the process of buying and selling stocks. After fully mastering the usage of the stock ordering system, Tianyuan walked to the back of the trading hall, which was a long corridor lined with many computers equipped with stock software, specifically designed for retail investors in the hall. The recent market has been good, with many retail investors in the business hall and not enough computers in the long corridor. But everyone was very tacit and spontaneously gave up their position to experienced and skilled technical analysts. Even if you give me a computer, I won't be able to read it, said a stock investor. Since computers have given up to the tech experts in everyone's hearts, staying near them can help them gain knowledge while analyzing stocks, right? Thinking of this, Tianyuan decided to stand behind and listen. Who told you in Chapter 2 that stock trading is gambling? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Although Tianyuan has been very interested in stocks since childhood and has read many books, he is still a new investor, so it is inevitable to feel confused when hearing a lot of technical analysis terminology. Time flies by, and as the morning close approaches, investors leave one after another. Looking at the distant computer in the countryside, there was still a person who hadn't left, so I thought of asking a question. Just as I was about to move forward, I suddenly heard someone talking behind me. Excuse me. Thank you. The female voice is gentle and delicate, seemingly familiar to the ear. As the countryside made way, she turned her head to look. He saw a female employee bending over to sweep the floor. The female employee also looked up at him. At the moment when the two people looked at each other, Tianyuan recognized her. It's Xin Qing, the girl she saved. Xin Qing saw the countryside and stood up with a smile, gently wiping her sweat and stroking her hair. You're here, she said. Tianyuan pointed to the broom in her hand and said, Are you on duty? Xin Qing hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to answer. Tianyuan glanced at Xin Qing's work clothes and confirmed that she was not on duty or helping with cleaning. She was a janitor. I didn't expect Manager Lu to assign cleaning work to Xin Qing. Tianyuan was very angry. He snatched the broom from Xin Qing's hand and dragged her towards the direction of the administrative office. Xin Qing saw the excitement in the countryside and guessed that he was very dissatisfied with the work arranged by Manager Lu. He wanted to take her to question the other party, so she nervously asked, What do you want, countryside? Find Manager Lu. Don't be impulsive, listen to me. Tianyuan stopped and turned to look at Xianqing. Don't get excited, the minimum requirement for recruitment in the sales department is a college degree. In my situation, I can only work as a cleaner. Have you finished speaking? Ah. After you finish speaking, come with me. Tianyuan once again dragged her towards the administrative office. Manager Lu is reporting his work to his superiors in the office. Seeing that the countryside didn't knock on the door and stormed in with Xianqing in a fit of anger, they immediately realized that the visitor was not kind. He quickly stood up from his chair and stared at the countryside with a wary expression on his face. The leader sitting on the side didn't know what was going on and looked towards the countryside. Without waiting for Tianyuan to speak, Manager Lu quickly said, "Young man, oh. Xinqing is also here. Is there anything I can say later? I am currently discussing work." As he spoke, he blinked, obviously indicating that he had something to discuss. And he had a hidden agenda, saying, talk about work, instead of report work, at this time was just afraid that the countryside would notice that the leader of the sales department was sitting in the office. If the countryside jumps over itself and directly seeks advice from the leader, it will be troublesome. But Tianyuan is a very careful person, he only took a glance and determined the identity of this person. However, considering that I have not had any contact with him before and do not know his position. In order to prevent giving people an unreasonable first impression, Tianyuan turned to a calm tone and asked Manager Lu, "Can we talk about it later?" Yes, we'll talk later." "Okay, we'll talk about it later." Tianyuan took Xianqing out. Manager Lu breathed a sigh of relief, but only then did he relax a bit and was asked by the leader what was going on. A little personal matter. Manager Lu was afraid that something might happen in the countryside, so he had to use personal matters to avoid direct dialogue with the leader. Although the leader was skeptical, he was too lazy to ask much and signaled Manager Lu to continue reporting on his work. Manager Lu was discussing his work while mentally calculating how to deal with the two people outside the door. In his logic, Xianqing himself has no objections to work arrangements, and after joining the company, Tianyuan has never contacted him again. I thought this thing would just pass, but I never expected the countryside to break in again. Is this a coincidence or is he consciously waiting for an opportunity to directly complain to the leader? Due to too many concerns and nervousness, Manager Lu stuttered when reporting on his work. The leader was very unhappy with the situation and told him to handle his personal matters before leaving. As soon as the leader entered the corridor, he saw an employee chatting with the young man who had just broken into the office. He simply stood and listened for a while. Although the content of the conversation is not complete, based on some information obtained earlier, the leader can determine that these two young people are the parties involved in the transaction hall hijacking case. After a few minutes, Manager Lu estimated that the leader should have gone far, so he thought of going out to look for the countryside. He didn't want to push the door and happened to see the leader. Finance is an industry where elites gather, and those who can lead securities firms are naturally wise individuals. The leader immediately realized what was going on when he saw the girl wearing a janitor's work uniform and the boy was furious. Seeing Manager Lu again, he pointed to Xianqing in the distance and scolded with a displeased expression, "So you want the whole industry to see our joke?" Manager Lu quickly understood and apologized to Xianqing in front of the leader, promising to transfer her position as a teller from this afternoon onwards. Xianqing nodded happily and agreed, and Tianyuan also accepted the plan and expressed gratitude to the leader. When the two of them left, it was already 12 noon. Xianqing proposed to invite the countryside to dinner as a way to thank him for helping her for the third time. Tianyuan thought to herself that she had never eaten with a girl outside since she was so big. The person in front of him, who is quite humble, immediately made him feel a little nervous. "Are you wearing this outfit to go out?" "Ah. You reminded me." Xianqing suddenly hurried back to the corridor. After a while, she ran back with a set of clothes and enthusiastically explained, work clothes, I asked Manager Lu for them. Tianyuan nodded and said, that's right. Manager Lu is a bully who fears hard. Don't be afraid of him. You go change your clothes quickly, I'll wait for you at the door. In order to prevent being late in the afternoon, the two of them found a small restaurant nearby and chatted while waiting for the dishes to be served. Tianyuan, I heard that you did well in this year's college entrance examination. I passed the exam. Tianyuan hesitated for a moment, then met Uncle Shen to save Xinqing, and helped Uncle Shen miss the college entrance examination. If I were to be honest at this moment, Xianqing would probably be very self-blaming. The college entrance examination results are not ideal. Ah. Xianqing looked shocked. What should we do then? It's okay, I can take the self-study exam. What is self-study exam? Self-study refers to self-study of university courses and taking exams. If you pass all subjects, you can also obtain a university degree. After hearing this, Xianqing seemed to brighten her eyes and said, can I also take the self-taught exam? Of course it's possible. You have already graduated from high school and are eligible to take the self-study exam. Tianyuan could see Xianqing's longing for a university degree and encouraged her, saying, why don't you study with me? Xianqing stuck out her tongue and said, I have to work, and my brain isn't that good either. Self-study exams allow students to work and learn on their own, and the same subject can be tested repeatedly until they pass. I have researched the exam questions and they are not that difficult. Believe in yourself, you can do it. Xianqing nodded and said, let's talk about it later. By the way, Tianyuan, I see that you always come to the sales department to look at stocks. Are you going to speculate in stocks? Yes, I have already opened an account, and I will learn to speculate on stocks while taking self-study exams. Oh, Xianqing hesitated for a moment before hesitating to speak. Tianyuan smiled and said, what's wrong? Just let me know if you have any thoughts. I have been working in the sales department for a while now, and I have heard some investors talk about stock trading. Many people say that stock trading is like gambling and it is difficult to win. Looking at Xianqing's worried expression, Tianyuan pondered for a few seconds and said, indeed, some people are using a gambling mentality to speculate in stocks, but stock trading cannot be equated with gambling. In my understanding, although gambling and stock trading are both speculative behaviors, the subject of gambling has no value, while stocks have. Xianqing looked puzzled and muttered, is it worth it? Many investors love to mention this word. Some people say that stocks used to have a piece of paper, but now they are all in the computer and have no value at all. What do you mean by value in rural areas? You see, gambling is usually about playing cards and dice, which have no value. However, behind stocks, there are real enterprises engaged in production and business activities. These enterprises have assets, products, and can make money. When enterprises make money, shareholders can distribute dividends, which is the value. That's right. So just relying on dividends won't make much money, right? Yes. So more people value the trading value of stocks, which is to capture the price difference of stock fluctuations. The market generally prices stocks based on the company's prospects, and the fluctuations generated during pricing are opportunities to make money. It's so complicated. But to be honest, the stock market is really hot now, with many people coming to the trading floor every day. Yes. The financial industry plays a very important role in economic development, and the country will definitely vigorously develop the capital market. As the people of ZH become richer, more and more people will join the stock trading team in the future. Seeing the confident appearance of the countryside, Xianqing's mood also became joyful. By the way, Xianqing, after you work at the counter, help me inquire about who has a high level of stock trading in the lobby. If there is a chance, I can ask them for advice. Xianqing nodded vigorously. After graduating from 19-year-old rural high school, he decided to learn about stock investment, but the knowledge of the stock market is so comprehensive that it is too rich. Where should he start? A study plan must be formulated. Tianyuan found a notebook from his desk, opened the cover, and found that the title page only had 8 simple words. No pain, no gain. The signature was Lu Jie. The notebook was specially bought by her to congratulate Tianyuan on his first grade, but he was reluctant to use it for many years. Now seeing Lu Jie's handwriting again, he felt another sense of guilt in his heart. Since the college entrance examination, he doesn't know how to explain to Sister Lu what exactly happened. When it comes to the safety of Uncle Shen's family, Tianyuan will not easily reveal the truth. He chose to keep this secret from zhaoshuyuan.com, which is not in vain for Lu Jie's evaluation of him as honest and kind. He decided to start his journey in the stock market with this notebook, which had witnessed academic success. To learn a vast amount of stock knowledge, taking notes alone is far from enough. It also requires modern tools. Computers. There is a computer at home in the countryside, which is the most popular Pentium third-generation compatible phone of the new millennium, but it is locked in a room. This is to prevent him from overusing and to prevent him from becoming addicted to computer games like many teenagers. So, except for when parents go home for vacation, the room where the computer is kept has always been a forbidden area in the countryside. However, what his parents didn't expect was that the countryside was a household helper and organizer, and he knew very well what was placed in every corner of the house. So, with his grandmother's surprised expression on his face, he took out the key from the crack in the sofa cushion and opened his parents' door. Tianyuan didn't act in the middle of the night like before, nor was he afraid of his grandmother telling him. He has made up his mind to study stocks and must race against time. Plug in the power, remove the dust cover from the monitor, and turn on the computer. To the surprise of the countryside, the last time my parents came home, they even set a power-on password. This is not difficult for the countryside. Cut off the power, open the computer case, and remove the button battery. 5 minutes later, the first password was easily released. As for the second Windows password, F8 enters secure mode to handle it. At this point, he easily overcame the 3 obstacles set by his parents to prevent them from using computers in the countryside. It is unclear whether his parents should be proud or angry about his abilities. Tianyuan took out the stock tutorial CD he purchased in the computer city and inserted it into the CD drive. With the flashing indicator lights and the sound of the CD rotating, he began his journey of learning stocks. Chapter 3. Basic Knowledge of the Stock Market, Tianyuan Stock Trading Notes 1. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. As early as 1602, the world's first joint stock company was established and quickly became one of the important organizational forms of social enterprises due to its convenient financing and strong liquidity. Stocks are certificates issued by a joint stock company to shareholders, who have the corresponding right to receive company profits and dividends based on their proportion of shares, as well as the right to vote on company decisions. At the same time, shareholders will also bear the risks of the company's operations. Voting rights. Under normal circumstances, each shareholder has the corresponding voting rights based on their proportion of stock shares. But some companies, in order to ensure the founder's decision-making power, will issue shares with several times the voting rights, such as 10 times the voting rights per share. The actual controller, also known as the controlling shareholder, is the shareholder with the highest voting rights of the listed company. It is further divided into absolute control and relative control. In theory, when a shareholder holds more than 50% of the company's equity, it is more than all other shareholders combined, thus forming absolute control. Relative control refers to a relatively advantageous proportion of shares, and if other shareholders have no objections, they can also become the controller of the company. Listed companies allow shareholders to delegate voting rights to others, and the authorizer and authorized person are collectively referred to as concerted action persons. Many companies in the stock market control their shares in this way. Limited company. The risk borne by shareholders is limited, and when a company goes bankrupt, it only liquidates all its assets to repay its debts, without the occurrence of creditors demanding additional capital from shareholders. Primary market. It is the market for issuing stocks, including the issuance of new shares and the reissue of old shares. Fundraising can be divided into two forms: public offering and private placement. Review system. Refers to the system in which funds raised through public stock issuance must undergo review. Not only does it review the information provided by the company, but it also examines the value of the enterprise. Usually, only companies that meet the scale and profitability standards can go public. Registration system. Only review the documents and materials provided by the company, and meet the obligation of information disclosure before listing. Secondary market. It is a market where investors buy and sell issued stocks. New stock subscription. Refers to the subscription of newly issued stocks. In the A-share market, the listing price in the secondary market has been higher than that in the primary market for a long time, resulting in a shortage of supply and demand for new stock issuances. Therefore, a lottery allocation, like a lottery, is adopted. In the early days, new shares were subscribed using cash and required full deposit payment. With more funds, one can subscribe more, while with less funds, one can only subscribe less. Due to the freezing of a large amount of funds every time a new stock is issued, there is too much pressure during a downturn in the market. To reduce this impact, China has innovatively adopted a stock market value subscription system. To qualify for participating in the new stock lottery, there must be stocks with a certain market value in the stock account. The subscription of new shares is based on 500 or 1,000 shares per unit, and the total amount of subscription must be an integral multiple of that unit. At the same time, the total amount of subscription cannot exceed the subscription limit. After the A-share market entered the registration system era, the minimum unit for subscribing to new shares was uniformly 500 shares. Main board. Most of them are listed companies in traditional industries. Small and medium-sized board. Enterprises with a smaller scale compared to the main board, later merged with the main board. Chi-Next and Sci-Tech Innovation Board. The threshold for listing is further lowered, serving markets with high-tech and high-growth stocks. Manifested as high risk and high return. Third board market. Listed companies that have suffered losses for 3 consecutive years or have been deemed delisted due to significant financial risks will enter the third board market for trading. If companies in the third board market operate well, rarely, there is also a chance to return to the main board for listing. Stock codes. Starting with 60 on the Shanghai Stock Exchange main board, 68 on the Science and Technology Innovation Board, 00 on the Shenzhen Stock Exchange main board, and 30 on the Growth Enterprise Board. Total share capital. The total number of individual shares issued by a listed company. Restricted shares. Shares that are not allowed to be sold for a certain period of time. Generally, it is the shares held by the original shareholders of a listed company or non-public offering shareholders. Their buying costs are usually relatively low, and in order to protect the rights and interests of other investors, they usually set a period for limiting the sale of such shares. Circulating shares. The total share capital minus restricted shares, the remaining shares can be freely traded. 10 major shareholders. Divided into two types, one is the 10 major shareholders including restricted shares, overseas circulating shares, and other total shares, and the other is the freely circulating shares in the current market. The top 10 shareholders of the latest issue can be found in the financial reports of listed companies. Classification of stocks. 1. Ordinary shares. Have corresponding decision-making power, profit distribution rights, and residual asset distribution rights in bankruptcy liquidation according to their proportion. 2. Preferred stock. Has priority over common stock in terms of profit distribution rights and residual asset distribution rights. 3. Post-allotment. Shares that have corresponding rights only after preferred and common shares. Due to disadvantages, the utilization rate of post-allotment is very low. 4. A. Share. Stocks of companies listed in mainland China. 5. B. Shares. Stocks listed in mainland China but settled in US dollars and Hong Kong dollars. 6. H. Shares. Hong Kong stocks. 7. St. Stock. A stock that has suffered operating losses or significant financial risks for 2 consecutive years and has been issued a risk warning by the exchange. 8. St. Stocks. Stocks that have been operating at a loss for 3 consecutive years or are facing legal, or financial, risks and are about to be delisted have been specially marked with delisting warning boards for trading. 9. Blue chip stocks. Generally, they are high-quality listed companies that occupy an important position in the industry, have excellent performance, active transactions, and good dividends. 10. Red chip stocks. ZH National Blue chip stocks listed overseas. Trading day. Refers to the day when stocks are open for trading. The stock market usually takes a break every holiday, and society always takes a break. If society doesn't take a break, the stock market sometimes takes a break. Trading hours. A. Shares open at 9:30 a.m., close at 11:30 a.m., open at 13 p.m., and close at 15 p.m. After market trading. Stocks on the Chinext and Science and Technology Innovation Board have a 30-minute post-market limit, closing price, trading time after closing. T+1 system. T-day refers to the day when trading occurs, and T+1 refers to the system where stocks can only be sold on the next trading day after being bought. The funds after selling the stocks can be repurchased on T-day, and withdrawals can only be made on T+1 day. In the early days of A. Shares, the T+0 system was implemented, but due to active trading, the T+1 system was later implemented. The limit up and limit down system refers to limiting the range of stock price fluctuations within one trading day. At the beginning of the establishment of A. Shares, there was no limit on price increases. Due to excessive speculation and large amplitude, a limit on price increases and decreases system was established since 1996. The process of participating in stock trading. 1. Handle account opening procedures. Buying and selling stocks must go through a securities company, and there are 2 ways to open an account. On-site account opening and remote account opening. Shareholders who open accounts on-site will receive a shareholder account card from the exchange, used to register stock trading, as well as a fund account card from the securities company for operation. Nowadays, electronic accounts are mostly used. 2. Set account password. The securities company's account has 3 passwords. Login password, communication password or dynamic verification code during login, and fund password for fund transfer. 3. Bank to securities transfer. In order to prevent securities companies from misappropriating customer deposits, ZH Country implements a system of banks managing money and securities companies managing stocks, also known as a third-party custody system. Before conducting stock trading, funds need to be transferred to a securities account through the bank securities transfer system. Similarly, when withdrawing money from the stock market, funds need to be transferred from the securities account to a bank card through the system. 4. Entrusted order placement. The earliest stock orders were filled out on .site, and with the popularization of the Internet, the number of entrusted methods gradually increased. Telephone entrustment, web entrustment, PC client, and mobile app can all be used. Limit price commission. A method of entrusting buying and selling at a specified price. In recent years, in order to prevent stock price manipulation, exchanges have also begun to impose certain restrictions on commissions. Market price commission. A commission method that authorizes the system to increase or decrease prices within the allowed quotation range, with the primary purpose of transaction. Cancellation. Revoke the purchase and sale order. Entrustment restriction. Except for the Science and Technology Innovation Board, which allows for free split of shares, the minimum unit for buying orders for other stocks is 1 lot, which is 100 shares. Each order must be an integral multiple of 1 lot. When selling, only the last full sale can be entrusted with 0 shares. Transaction fees. 1. Commission. The fee charged by a securities company to shareholders, generally agreed upon by industry associations, and shareholders can negotiate with the securities company based on the amount of funds and trading volume. 2. Transaction stamp duty. Levied by the state. The tax was first levied on the seller at a rate of 0.6%, and later also on the buyer. The stamp duty rate is one of the tools for regulating the market, and as the market undergoes multiple rounds of ups and downs, the stamp duty in the stock market also increases or decreases. For example, during the 2008 financial crisis, the tax rate had already decreased to 1,000 and was only levied on sellers. Transfer fee. It is a fee charged by securities registration and clearing institutions, collected by securities companies on their behalf. Initially, the tax rate was 1% per thousand, but gradually decreased to 2% per 100,000. Regulatory fees. Including securities management fees, charged at 0.002% of the transaction amount, the securities trading handling fee is charged at 0.00487% of the transaction amount, which is already included in the commission rates of many securities companies. Other fees. In the early days, some securities companies would levy small fees such as using machines and transferring funds. There are no such expenses now. Time-share trend chart of stocks. It is the basic interface of Kanban, containing rich information. The upper left corner of the time of use chart shows the stock price trend curve, with the white line representing the real-time transaction price and the yellow line representing the daily average price line. The bottom left is a bar chart of transaction volume. The upper right corner of the time-sharing chart is the buying and selling commission area, which includes multiple levels of commission prices and quantities for real-time order placement. The middle on the right is the stock transaction information, and the bottom on the right is the split transaction return. The information included in the time-sharing chart includes 1. Opening price and closing price. Both are generated through call auction. The bidding opening price is generated from 9.15 to 9.25, and the closing price is generated from 14.57 to 15.00. Collective bidding. The computer selects the price with the highest transaction volume from all quotation commissions as the transaction price. Its principles are: 1. Purchase orders higher than the transaction price shall be executed at the transaction price. 2. Selling orders below the transaction price shall be executed at the transaction price. 3. If the transaction price is consistent, at least one party between the buyer and the seller will complete the transaction. To ensure trading, investors can appropriately raise the buying price or lower the selling price during the call auction. Continuous bidding. After the stock opens, it enters the stage of continuous bidding. Its principles are: 1. When the highest buy order price is the same as the lowest sell order price, the transaction is made at that price. 2. When the purchase commission price is higher than the minimum price for immediate commission sale, the transaction shall be made at the minimum commission sale price. 3. When the selling commission price is lower than the highest price for immediate commission buying, the transaction is made at the highest commission buying price. The principle followed by continuous bidding is: for orders placed at the same time, the price takes priority. Orders with the same price have priority over time. 2. The highest/lowest price generated in a transaction. 3. Latest price. The price of the most recent split transaction. 4. Average price. The average price obtained by dividing the total transaction amount by the total transaction volume in a time-sharing chart. 5. Change of hands. Real-time trading volume divided by total stock issuance. 6. Increase. The increase in stock price compared to the previous day's closing price. 7. Overall. The total number of transactions currently made. Each hand has 100 shares. 8. Current hand. The total quantity of the most recent transaction. 9. Total amount. The total amount of stock transactions. 10. Volume ratio. The ratio of the current trading volume per minute of a stock to the average level of the past 5 trading days. The larger the volume ratio, the more active the trading of the stock. 11. Internal trading. Refers to the total number of transactions made by the seller at the buyer's price, which can be considered as the seller voluntarily lowering the commission price. 12. External trading. Refers to the total number of transactions made by the buyer at the seller's price, which can be considered as the buyer actively raising the commission price. The methods of stock analysis can be divided into 2 categories. Fundamental analysis and technical analysis. Fundamental analysis takes the value of a company as the research direction, starting from its development prospects, operating conditions, and financial indicators, to calculate the value of a listed company. Usually suitable for studying long-term trends. Technical analysis is a method of conducting trend analysis and judgment based on market behavior, which is usually suitable for studying short-term and medium-term trends. The stock market has a long history and has been extensively explored by investors from various perspectives, forming numerous analytical schools. Fundamental analysis often refers to indicators. Macro analysis. 1. Monetary policy has a significant impact on the stock market. When there is sufficient circulating funds in society, the stock market tends to rise, with N2, broad money circulation, being the most important. The commonly used tools for monetary policy include central bank benchmark interest rate. The interest rate reflects the cost of financing funds, and when the interest rate rises, the cost of using funds increases, putting pressure on the stock market. When interest rates decrease, the cost of using funds decreases, benefiting the stock market. It should be noted that interest rates are now commonly used to reverse regulate the market. Deposit reserve ratio. Refers to the funds deposited by commercial banks with the central bank to control potential risks. Rediscount rate. Refers to the interest rate level at which commercial banks transfer unexpired bills to the central bank. Open market business. The central bank completes the increase or decrease of circulating currency in the entire market by buying and selling securities. 2. Economic indicators. The stock market is a barometer of the national economy, so economic indicators have reference value for analyzing the stock market. GDP. Gross domestic product, its growth rate is a direct indicator of economic status. CPI. Price index. It reflects the level of inflation and is generally believed that a small reasonable increase is beneficial for the stock market. PPI. Factory price of industrial products. Similar to CPI, only the statistical object is industrial products. PMI. Purchasing Managers Index. An indicator that measures the status of the manufacturing industry in terms of production, orders, prices, inventory, employment, delivery, import and export. 3. Policy analysis. Policies directly promote or suppress the prosperity and decline of the stock market. Common stock market policies include stamp duty, pace of new stock issuance, review of asset restructuring and refinancing, etc. Fundamental analysis of individual stocks. 1. Industry analysis. The level of prosperity, supply and demand relationship, and competitive situation of the industry in which the company operates. 2. Financial analysis. Analyze the indicators in a company's financial report, including a. Balance sheet. Assets include fixed assets, current assets, intangible assets, and other assets. Liabilities include short-term liabilities, long-term liabilities, and other liabilities. B. Income statement. including total operating income, operating costs, management expenses, as well as gross profit and net profit. C. Cash flow statement. Includes cash from operating activities, cash from investment activities, and cash from financing activities. 3. Shareholder analysis. Analyze the strength of controlling shareholders and related shareholders, as well as the level of management team. 4. Research report analysis. A research report is a professional organization's analysis of a company's business prospects, usually containing important information such as industry policies, market supply and demand status, and the number of new orders received by listed companies. Technical analysis. 1. Focus on analyzing the fluctuation patterns of stock prices. 2. Usually, the price and trading volume parameters of stocks are used as analysis elements. 3. Focused on analyzing the short-term and medium-term trends of stock prices. 4. The goal is to find suitable buying and selling opportunities. Common methods for technical analysis. K. Line. Collect the opening price, highest price, lowest price, and closing price of stock prices and plot them into a chart. Use www.Tianyuan.com to analyze the market trend of stocks. Volume price category. K-line indicators are used together with trading volume to analyze stock price trends. Indicator class. Perform certain mathematical operations on the values of each price element or trading volume in the K-line chart, and plot the calculation results into a chart for analysis. The most commonly used ones include the price average, MA, smooth similarity average, MACD, random indicator, KDJ, relative strength indicator, RSI, and divergence rate, bias. Morphological analysis. Analyze the morphology formed by the medium to long-term K-line chart. There are many classic top-bottom and price relay patterns that are effective in determining market buying and selling points. Tangent analysis. Analyze the stock's candlestick chart in a linear manner. Tangent technique is used to determine the pressure support point of stocks and guide buying and selling operations accordingly. Wave theory. Summarize market fluctuations into wave-like structures and search for patterns within them. Chip analysis. It is the process of studying real trading cases of investors, identifying patterns within them, and then deriving certain calculation methods. Then, using this algorithm, speculate on the possible buying and selling points of investors in stock price fluctuations, and finally draw a bar chart at the corresponding prices in the chart, which can be used to analyze important pressure support prices. Cycle analysis. Divide the strength of a stock's performance into several cycles and seek buying and selling opportunities. The goal is to compare the strength of trends and find patterns. Capital flow. Counting every transaction during the stock split. The buyer's proactive initiation is considered as an inflow of funds, while the seller's proactive initiation is considered as an outflow of funds. This method is similar to the inner and outer discs, but more accurate. Psychological analysis. By assessing the emotional state of investors, predict the high and low points of the market. Chapter 4. For Great Masters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After supplementing the basic knowledge, Tianyuan walked into the TH Securities trading hall early again. The early bird doesn't know if there are insects to eat, but diligence is the minimum requirement for doing things. As soon as he entered the door, he found Xin Qing standing in front of the counter waving at him. The countryside walked over. Xin Qing remained silent, but carefully looked around. Tianyuan couldn't help but follow her and look left and right, but after looking around, she didn't see what was going on. He had to approach Xin Qing and whispered, "Comrade, it's safe." Unexpectedly, Xin Qing nodded seriously and said, Then I can rest assured." After that, she took out a stacked note from her pocket. "I'll find a place where nobody is around to watch later." The countryside, who took the paper, wondered what this was. How could it be like a spy joint? He wanted to ask, but saw Tianyuan with a serious expression as she was organizing materials, and suddenly came up with a sentence. Your business is done. Tianyuan knew that she was a newcomer and couldn't fish casually. Suddenly, she said this out of fear that someone might accuse her of chatting during work hours. Since that's the case, don't ask. Just look at the note and you'll know what's going on. Tianyuan walked back to the trading hall, found an empty corner, and opened the note like a thief. The note shows the intelligence of the sales department experts that the countryside asked Tianyuan to help collect during a meal 2 days ago. Her delicate handwriting is very neat, and the information of the 4 top experts in the retail hall is highlighted on the note. Expert 1. Uncle Jiang, around 50 years old, is a standard technical person. He is very enthusiastic, and whenever someone asks about stocks, he will help analyze them. Expert 2. Xiao Dai, in his early 30s, although not very old, he is considered young among investors, so everyone calls him Xiao Dai, claiming to have worked as a trader in private equity funds. Everyone has different opinions on his level. Some people think he is very impressive, while others say he is average. Xiao Dai has a proud personality and is somewhat difficult to approach. Expert 3. Aunt Li, whose age is unknown, comes from a professional accounting background. It is said that she has made a lot of money in the stock market, so she became a professional investor. Her stock trading strategy is different from many people, and many investors do not fully understand her ideas. Master 4. Mr. Ma, also known as Mr. Ba, has the same investment philosophy as Buffett, advocating value investing. Moreover, he is over 80 years old, which is why people like to call him Mr. Ba. Seeing this, Tianyuan couldn't help but laugh and muttered to himself, how could it be the 8th Lord? Shouldn't it be called 80 Lord? Tianyuan also collected information from some other investors in the retail hall, but it is obviously not as eye-catching as the 4 experts. The pastoral memory is very good. After reading, he collected the notes and returned to the counter. When Tianyuan looked up and saw herself, Tianyuan made a gesture of clasping her fists to express gratitude. Tianyuan smiled and clenched her fists, meaning to cheer. Tianyuan also responded with a similar gesture and then calculated how to seek advice from the 4 masters. In his opinion, the most worry-free person among the 4 masters is Uncle Jiang, who is also easy to identify. He has been stationed at the computer on one side of the hall for a long time, often teaching people around him on site. Tianyuan has known him for a long time, but there are too many people chatting with him about stocks every day, and there is no chance to interject. As for the other 3 people, especially the proud little brother Dai, they have never interacted with the countryside. It seems that if you want to learn something, you really need to spend some time. At least you need to know when the 4 masters will appear in the business hall. Unexpectedly, the incident of saving someone in the business hall on the eve of the college entrance examination caught many people's attention and left a good impression on him. Even Aunt Li, one of the 4 masters, took the initiative to chat with him. I used to be an accountant and had a good understanding of the methods of preparing financial reports, so I researched the financial statements of listed companies. I focused on analyzing the traces of artificial processing in financial reports and searching for investment opportunities in such stocks. Tianyuan was puzzled. Do you mean that listed companies have engaged in accounting fraud? Aunt Li smiled and said, it can't be called fake accounts, it's more appropriate to call them accounts. After all, there are areas in accounting standards that can be utilized. Ah. It seems that you don't know yet. In fact, under the premise of accounting rules, it is possible to adjust a company's profits. For example, fixed assets of a company, such as buildings and equipment, have a useful life and therefore need to be depreciated. However, there is more than one method of depreciation. It can be depreciated in one lump sum or in batches. Tianyuan nodded. The impact of 2 methods on profits is obvious. For example, if a company signs a sales contract, its delivery date and payment date can be negotiated, so there is room for adjustment in the time of revenue recognition. There are many similar methods that can adjust profits, so I have studied which companies are included in the report. Auntie, where are the investment opportunities for the listed company that uses financial means you mentioned? Of course it's a company that deliberately hides profits. Tianyuan was surprised and said, why are there companies hiding profits? Don't everyone like to paint their performance very beautiful? Aunt Lee smiled and said, masquerading performance is mostly for financing purposes, while hiding or adjusting profits, of course, has their purpose. Let me give the most common example, ST stocks. Do you know what ST stocks are? I know. After 2 consecutive years of losses with a cap, some listed companies delist after another year of losses. In order to avoid delisting, some listed companies may calculate the third year's expenses in advance in the second year, or postpone the recognition of the second year's income to the third year. As a result, the losses in the second year increase, while the profits in the third year increase. Tianyuan suddenly realized, that's really it. That's right. So I really enjoy studying ST stocks, especially those companies that are considered the most dangerous and on the brink of delisting. You are truly a skilled and courageous person. Actually I can't say I like ST stocks, I just like the concept of asset restructuring that comes with them. Asset restructuring. That's right, asset restructuring is an eternal hot topic in the market, and the more difficult a company is, the more it will find ways to save itself. The most motivated to seek restructuring is the ST stock, which has been losing money for 2 consecutive years, and the closer it is to delisting, the more urgent it becomes. Aunt Lee knows that her ideas don't quite align with the public's thinking, and she can also see that Tianyuan is a naive new investor. Therefore, she earnestly reminds, our stock market is still very young, and the information disclosure is not complete enough. Professional accountants can understand the tricks inside, but as a newcomer like you, it may not be suitable for my investment method. Tianyuan nodded, lamenting that the intelligence collected by Xin Qing was quite accurate. Talking with Aunt Lee, Grandpa Ma also came to the trading hall. He seemed to pass by Aunt Lee's seat deliberately, and without lifting his head, he said, "Don't teach the child crooked." Aunt Lee felt very uncomfortable when she heard it, but it was not easy to argue with her elders in public. She just chuckled bitterly and muttered, "If you hear anything, just say I taught you wrong." Tianyuan remembered that Mr. Ma is a value investor, while Aunt Lee specializes in buying ST stocks with severe losses. There is a conflict of ideas between the two, and it is normal for them to have a sharp confrontation. It's just that Grandpa Ma has wronged Aunt Lee this time. She has already explained the advantages and disadvantages of her method very clearly, and she is not without thinking ability and will not be easily misled. Tianyuan originally wanted to comfort Aunt Lee by trying to make a comeback, but she seemed to have gotten used to it. You see, the stock market is like this, one person, one method. If you think your aunt is right, you should study accounting knowledge well. Of course, you should also listen to other people's methods more. Aunt Lee raised her finger to Grandpa Ma and said, "He must think that I have instilled in you an unhealthy stock trading philosophy. You can go over now and let him tell you his thoughts." Tianyuan felt that Aunt Lee was a straightforward and kind person, and after expressing gratitude, he walked straight to Grandpa Ma. Grandpa Ma saw the countryside walking to his side and just glanced with his spare light. Although he didn't express anything, it was evident from the slight curl of his lips that he was glad that Tianyuan could come over to seek advice. As a younger generation in the countryside, one must be more polite. "Grandpa, I heard that you are one of the experts in our trading hall, so I came to ask for your advice." Known as a master among the masters, Grandpa Ma's heart was filled with joy. But at this age, he didn't want to be too flamboyant, so he pretended to be serious and asked, "Young man, shouldn't you go to school at your age? Why did you run into the stock market?" Tianyuan was taken aback for a moment. "Why, don't you want to go to school anymore?" "Young people, too restless." Study hard and don't delay stock trading. Oh, sir, I am currently taking a college course in finance for self-study. Studying stock trading is beneficial for my studies. Grandpa Ma nodded slowly and said, well, self-study is fine. I also self-studied when I was young. Learning is about diligence and perseverance. As long as you have a clear idea in your mind. Tianyuan nodded. Mr. Ma continued, as for stocks, it's really complex to say they are complex, but sometimes they can be very simple. May I hear its details? Why say it's complex? It's just that there are too many people studying it, with all kinds of strange ideas. I see, stocks are complicated by these people. I'm just an old man, not so many messy ideas, I'll use the simplest method. Grandpa Ma paused for a moment, as if he wanted to see the reaction of the countryside. Tianyuan quickly put on a hopeful expression. Grandpa Ma felt even more proud in his heart, raised his voice, and consciously wanted to ask Aunt Lee to listen. Listed companies do business, and I buy stocks from a business perspective. I buy stocks from the company that makes the most money. Well said. Suddenly, someone around clapped and cheered, and Tianyuan quickly nodded along. Tianyuan once again marveled at Xian Qing's excellent intelligence collection. Mr. Ma is a 100% value investor and said, so, Mr. Ma, what do you think are the most profitable businesses in the stock market right now? Mr. Ma hesitated for a moment and smiled at the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Everyone has their own opinions. You don't have to talk to me, I never recommend stocks. You just need to remember that the best stock trader in the world, Buffett, is the real Mr. Ba. You can learn how to trade stocks. Tianyuan nodded. As for what little Lizzie just told you, if there's gold in ST, it's definitely a scam on you. Companies are losing money in business and going bankrupt. Can stocks be good? Grandpa, I heard Aunt Lee is a professional accountant, maybe she can see the tricks in the company's financial statements. Grandpa Ma pursed his lips and glanced at Aunt Lee's direction. She's a professional accountant, but her own company's accounts are not accurate. Do you know that their company has long gone bankrupt, and she's a laid-off employee? Tianyuan originally wanted to explain again, saying that Aunt Lee did not suggest investing in ST stocks, but he was afraid that Mr. Ma would become more and more assertive, and in the end, if the two of them argued again, it would be troublesome, so he had to change the topic. Subsequently, Mr. Ma recounted his entry into the stock market in the 1990s and the sporadic achievements of his career in stock trading. The morning passed quickly, and Xian Qing, who had a lunch break, walked from the counter to the countryside and asked with a bright smile, okay, countryside. I've talked to the two experts all morning. How do you feel? I didn't expect it to go so smoothly either, thanks to your precise intelligence. I also asked many people. However, the concepts of these two masters seem quite contradictory. What do we say? The two of them, one likes ST stocks that have been losing money for years, the other likes stocks of the most profitable companies. Xian Qing exclaimed, it's quite contradictory. The strangest thing is that they are all called experts. Two people looked at each other and smiled.